Hello, hi there, hello, and welcome to the movie discussion pocket dimension, where time does not exist, and the only thing that matters is film. That is Jay, and I am Cole. And tonight we're had a bit of a false start because originally I know we've been teasing the idea of doing another series coming up, and that is happening. But we've had a bit more trouble getting that off the ground. We've had some trouble coordinating that and figuring out exactly how to start it. That's still happening. In fact, at the end of this show, we can finally announce what it is and tell you what is going forward. But to buy ourselves some time and also just to get a show up, and because we wanted to, we found ourselves sort of stepping back. I think it's because after the last episode we did on Akira, which is, a really significant film in the cyberpunk genre, Jay and I, who are both huge fans of that genre, decided it would be good to dip our toes back into that because we both like it so much, and do another film, which brings us to tonight, which is Dark City, from Australian.
We both own it. This may be the only time this has ever happened.
Yeah, boom, we both show it. Yeah, there's the DVD and the Blu-ray from Australian director Alex Proyas, who also directed one of my favorite films, The Crow, of course, and he's gone on and done some other stuff too. And this was a movie he co-wrote with a few other people, including noted screenwriter nowadays, David S. Goyer, who's probably one of the more notable and successful screenwriters of the last while. At this point, the only thing he had to his credit was the Crow sequel, which is perhaps how Alex knew him, and which was Crow City of Angels. And then at the time of the movie hadn't been out yet, he had finished the script for Blade, the first sort of Marvel film. Yeah, so we're just about 21 years into like Marvel making movies. Although, again, for me, I only really like the Marvel Studios movies. There's still some ones outside there. And, of course, the Blade trilogy is not bad. It's not bad at all.
When Blade starts, it doesn't have that Marvel intro, does it? The Marvel Studios intro?
I don't think so. I don't even think it does that weird comic book flipping thing.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's been so long since I've seen it from the beginning. Like, every once in a while, Blade's on TV, and I catch a piece of it, but I haven't seen it from the beginning.
I really like Blade, but it does not hold up very well.
No,
a lot of
it doesn't.
The entire end sequence is, you could pretty much just not even watch it. I just like the stylistic stuff near the beginning.
Yeah.
The
trilogy as a whole, doesn't hold up too well but I enjoy for what it is. I like Blade Trinity way more than most people do. I like it a lot, even though the bad guy sucks. Like, and you think, how can you have a good movie if the villain sucks? Well, I don't know, because he really does suck. But I still find things that I like about Blade Trinity for whatever reason. Particularly, I do like the ending. It's funny. I was talking to our friend Eric last night. We were talking about comic book movies and stuff like this. And I know I've said this before on other platforms. Like, I really do like the as far as DC goes, like the only thing I really like is the Nolan Batman trilogy. I like them very much. But if I did have a problem with it, it's that he grounds it so much in the real world that it takes away some of that comic bookiness. Plus the fact that he conceived a trilogy that had a beginning, middle, and ending. And as a real Batman fan, I don't want to see an ending. Right. Like I don't want to see Batman retire and hang up his cowl. Like that's not what the comic books are about. These are ongoing sagas that will outlive all of us. We'll be dead, and Spider-Man will still be in his mid-20s swinging around. They're not going to be like, okay, time to end it. And there's all sorts of course, alternate continuity endings that pop up all the time. Batman Year 100, and just so many of those things where people say, here's a way it could end, and we enjoy them for the novelty, but the whole point is that's never going to be the main continuity. So what I really like, I always bring it up, is I love the ending of Blade Trinity, because it's a good comic book ending, because it's not really an ending, and it has this great narration by Hannibal King, and it shows like Blade just driving off into the sunset on his bike, and he's just like, Blade's life is a war, and that war continues. And to me, yes, that is right and proper for a comic book character. I don't want to see them get old. I don't want to see them quit. I don't want to see them live happily ever after. I want it to just to go on. Even when it's over, you realize, okay, they're still out there doing what they do. So
I agree. I feel like Nolan probably did that just because he's putting his stamp on it. I'm ending my trilogy now.
Yeah, exactly. And the writer in me can't fault him for that. I understand, it makes a lot of sense, again, to conceive of a story with a clear beginning, middle, end, and that way you can feel satisfied about the way he did it. And again, he was interested in making Batman a bit more realistic than he is in other media, which is fine, but I still do think deprived us of some things. Like, I'll never understand his hatred for Robin, but, he hated Robin. There was no way Robin was ever going to show up. And I get it. I'm not going to get into it, or I'll just derail the whole show. We got a good show ahead of us. But, you know, I realize how problematic the character of Robin is. In the 70-some years that Robin's been around, the writer's biggest task has been trying to explain how to justify him, how to explain that he does work and he is important, to the point that now we've had 3 or 4 Robins. This is a whole other thing maybe we'll save for the end, but I just finished the first season of that Titans show.
Oh, yeah.
DC, and my God, that's an insane mess that maybe we can talk about. But back to this, I was going to say, so yeah, we decided before we get ahead to the other series, why not go back to some cyberpunk since we both like it so much? And this is a good example. If you wanted to get really, chintzy and specific about it, you could say that Dark City is one of the best examples of a subgenre, sometimes known as diesel punk, given the aesthetic it uses. You know, people have heard of steampunk. Well, diesel punk is kind of like the next thing up, just because of the visual aesthetic that's used and stuff like that. But we can start, I guess, by sort of just defining what cyberpunk is, which is most simply, you know, it's a science fiction movie crossed with film noir, more or less. You have a world that has, say, advanced technology that doesn't exist in the real world yet, and may or may not have some other elements like aliens or something too. And then you give it sort of the film noir treatment, where usually it's sort of a dark and dirty, claustrophobic environment that's kind of oppressive and filled with, you know, shady characters. And then you have your main characters. Your hero is usually more of a reluctant anti-hero and shades of gray and all that stuff. And that's how you get it. The ultimate example in film is, you know, we talked about many times, it's probably Blade Runner. And this movie certainly borrows some from Blade Runner, as almost anything in the genre does. But it also borrows from lots of other cool movies too that we can get into. I have one of them here, Brazil. It has a lot of visual stuff in common with Brazil, which in itself is sort of the Kafka influence. Franz Kafka, the German Czech writer from the early 20th century. Sometimes people refer to this film as Kafkaesque, and maybe in the future, tied into the series we're doing, might even get to do something that it treats a Kafka work. We'll see. But yeah, so I've just always found, you know, both those things appealing. So putting them together, you know, the cyberpunk, it's always been sort of my favorite genre to work in, and yeah, a lot of my favorite movies take place within that kind of realm, and some books and comics and stuff too. Of course, we talked about Akira, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of Akira, we were, you know, listing off a few of the others in the genre, and it's I mean, it's tons of movies, but there's lots of bad entries into the
a lot of them are just, you know, sort of derivative and not memorable, right?
Johnny Mnemonic or something like that. You know,
oh man,
like Tank Girl, or I don't know if Tank Girl would be considered.
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of.
Yeah. But yeah, Johnny Mnemonic was one of those movies that I really wanted to like because of what it's supposed to be about and stuff. It's just terrible to watch. Because I was like, oh, this is gonna be cool. You know, you've got the actor Keanu Reeves, and it actually has a rare sort of different kind of role for Dolph Lundgren. So it's like, oh, this will be cool, but no, it's not cool. It's a painful chore of a movie to get through. So it does not really have a very good visual look or anything to it. It's just sort of bland, and so yeah.
I want $1,000 hooker. I want a lobster. I want to get my clothes dry cleaned.
I can't even remember any lines.
Tokyo hotel or whatever.
Yeah. I can't even remember any lines. That's how little impression it made on me.
This is very much like Surfer Dude Keanu too, not Matrix Keanu. Well,
and that's another thing we'll eventually have to get into is, you know, there's a lot of parallels between this and the Matrix. And
absolutely.
I'm one of those snobby people that likes to say, you know, this is way better than the Matrix, and if you like the Matrix, you should like this more. You know, that kind of thing. It's funny. I've never really had the conversation with Ryan, but my friend Ryan, The Matrix is one of his all-time favorite movies, and I think the main reason he doesn't like Dark City is he knows that, like, you know, a lot of people will use like Dark City as like the smarter, better, you know, movie with more depth, and I think he kind of resents it for that. Because this movie was not really a success in its time. I had no notion it did even come out. I don't remember any promotion for it. Don't remember any previews. Nothing. You know, it was only about 3 or 4 years later that I became aware that the movie even fucking existed. And also, critically, it didn't do too well either. And you'll see some reviews of people that that often they would sort of praise the design and stuff, but they thought like they didn't like the substance. They weren't calling it all style, no substance, but they were saying like, I like the style, I don't like the substance, which to me is baffling. But you know,
I like I saw it in the theater.
You did? Wow. So you're a rare person.
It's
not any of those.
It's like they didn't know how to market it because
Mm-hmm.
they don't know what it is, because it's really a film that leaves a lot up to your own interpretation and
Sure.
or really what you want to believe it is. And I think that doesn't sit well with a lot of people. They want definitive answers to everything, and that's probably one of the reasons why it didn't play well to a mainstream audience. But I mean, this film I think holds up very well, as opposed to, I don't think The Matrix holds up very well at all. It's very it's very 90s.
Yeah, The Matrix holds up as like a snapshot of what was considered cool and edgy at the time. That's what it holds up as, which is not timeless. You want movies to be timeless if they can be. And
I mean, this feels timeless. I probably haven't watched it in 5 or 6 years, but it could have been made yesterday.
Yeah, and for a film that has to have some CG and stuff, and you think 90s CG, it's not nearly as bad as you would think. There's way worse 90s CG than this. I mean, by today's standards, yes, the effects aren't great, but they're not nearly as painful and cringe-inducing as a lot of stuff from the era was. So you got to give them credit for that too, because again, this wasn't a movie that had like a big backing behind it. It didn't like have a big budget or anything. It came out with, as we said, a little fanfare, and the studio didn't really know what to do with it. And to that point, the version we're both doing is the director's cut, not the theatrical cut, because some things had to be changed for the theatrical cut, including New Line, the studio, being, I guess, concerned that audiences weren't going to understand the movie, to the point that they insisted that they put in this narration voiceover at the beginning of the movie, which spoils the plot all to hell.
Yeah.
And they just thought, oh, we have to put that in, otherwise the audience will be lost. Again, not understanding, well, having the audience be lost at the start is part of the appeal. The whole point is you're supposed to be like in Murdoch's shoes and not know what the hell's going on, have to like take the clues and what's going on and start to piece things together. And yet they felt like, oh no, people just get lost and they'll be upset and frustrated. We need some sort of guiding thing to hold their hand. So that's sort of the major difference. The other difference is this has some extended scenes. And a small difference that I think a lot of people don't mention is that and I think it's one of the only editions that's not as good, is that in the theatrical cut of Dark City, in the nightclub scenes where Jennifer Connelly's character is singing, in the theatrical cut, she's overdubbed by an actual like artist singer. I can't remember her name, but some British singer. In this director's cut, they take that out, and we get the cut of Jennifer Connelly's vocals, which are fine. She sings fine.
But, oh yeah, I thought she sang very well.
Yeah, she sings fine, but I do think the other is better. It's not a big deal or anything like that, because they're pretty low key numbers and it's fairly short. It's not huge, but it's been a while. But if you go back and are able to listen to the scene theatrical with the different voice, it is a better voice and it is done a little better. But it's not huge, and that's the only thing I think is better about the theatrical cut. Apart from that, I would say, like most people, the director's cut is the definitive cut. It is definitely the way to go, especially if you're experiencing the story for the first time, because it's much better to not have, at the very outset, a bunch of spoilers dropped on your lap. It's much better to be able to take the ride that is intended for you.
Did you happen to go back and watch that, the theatrical version?
No, I didn't have the opportunity. I thought I would find it a lot easier, but then I couldn't. And then I was just like, you know what? I have to make time for some other stuff. So then I allocated that time to watch some of the extras that are on here, the making of and stuff.
So, see, I haven't seen it probably since, a few years, I don't know, whenever this came out, this is the only version I've watched. So this is really all I remember is the director's cut version. So I don't remember what all, it's the key for doing the long dialogue right at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't
remember it specifically, but I remember sort of the gist that it gives away stuff about the strangers and the fact that the world is being manipulated and stuff like that. They do say stuff like that, which really, is, you don't want that. Sometimes, so often what people are told if they don't have the director's cut is like, well, you can just watch the normal cut, but just mute like the first, mute it at the very start. Apart from that, I can't remember exactly the exact details. Just like I can't remember which scenes are extended. It's been too long. It's I want to get this on Blu-ray like you have, but it'd be nice if they had a Blu-ray that included both versions.
This has both, I believe.
Oh, yours does. Mine doesn't.
Yeah, it has both.
Okay, well that's good. That's another incentive then, because yeah, I thought that this had it, but it doesn't.
So those must have been released at different times then.
Yeah.
I was thinking they put them both out at the same time, but they've got different content. So, and they easily could have put that on a DVD.
Sure. Yeah, I know, but they didn't.
They want you to buy both.
I'll get around to it because yeah, it is a priority for me to own this in Blu-ray. I just haven't happened upon it yet because yeah, it's a movie that I really really like. I hold in high regard. So a lot of this, is going to be us praising it. But
I mean, my initial impression was just kind of confusion. I mean, I liked it. I liked the style aspects of it. The look of it, very cool and different. But it probably wasn't until I watched it a few times before I fully grasped, what was going on. It was 98. I should have been a little smarter than that, but I don't know. But yeah, I have really come to appreciate the film for what it is.
Say how I would have felt if I saw it in '98. It's over 20 years ago now. I would have been in my teens, so I might have had it. I mean, I saw it maybe 3 or 4 years later, probably. I probably saw it maybe around 2002 or something like that, I think. I can't remember the exact circumstances. I mean, I definitely remember my initial impression was I liked it. Mm-hmm. It might have taken a few years before I started to really gain appreciation for it. I'm not entirely sure, so many other movies and things going on in my mind at the time that it's hard to nail down just one, even though again, this is one that stands out and is one that I would list amongst my favorites. Certainly my favorites, if we're talking about like sci-fi or cyberpunk, it's right up there.
It's very culty. I remember being one of those films like, oh, have you seen Dark City? Oh, well, let's watch it right now. So your friends that hadn't seen it, you would kind of push it on them.
Yeah, that's kind of like me. Like I said, I like using it as like a Matrix alternative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I mean, the Matrix like beats you over the head with what's going on. Like, there's no doubt that this is an alternate reality. This is not real. Yeah. Spoilers for the Matrix.
Yeah, I mean, they're different movies trying to do different things. So I try not to come down too hard on the Matrix, but yeah, I just the choices this movie makes in regards to having some of the similar plot elements. I always think it makes the right choices, whereas the Matrix, I think it makes the more boring choice. And again, you could say, well, that's just not the story they're telling with the Matrix. Fine, that's okay. I'm not if I'm going to pick apart the Matrix's story, I'll save it for the 2 sequels. The first movie, it tells an okay story. I don't have a problem with it. It's once they try to turn it into like this trilogy that I think it really starts to go sideways. And we can get into some of that in parallels. But going back to the point of the narration and how it could ruin stuff and the ride. I mean, let's just unpack just the opening, the 3 or 4 opening scenes of this movie and what the audience is faced with. It's really something. So I mean, first, we start with a noirish city, and then we have our main character waking up in a bathtub with no memory of who he is, and discovering that he's there with I think a dead body. So right off, that's kind of a cliche, right? We have a main character who's lost his memory and doesn't know who he is and doesn't have any memory of where he's been or what's going on, and he seems to be embroiled in some sort of plot. And what we got here is we find out that someone's been killing prostitutes, and so it starts. Oh, could it be that our main character is a killer and he just doesn't know, or is somebody setting him up? But already before we get into what it's really about, there's just little things in there to let us know that there's more to this going on than just that. And just really. Has been asleep.
Sorry, you cut out for a little bit there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's funny. On my end, it looks like you are. So I was saying, even from the very beginning, we get to see that it's different from just that standard sort of cliche thing about memory loss. That there is more going on that will eventually tie into the plot that will make sense once we know the full thing. And so once he gets downstairs into the lobby, and he's going to have his interaction with the clerk there at the desk. he notices that everybody in the lobby is just sort of waking up. They're all waking up at the same time. Like, what a weird thing. Why is everybody in the lobby just waking up at the same time? And they don't seem like they know that it happened. And he has his interaction with the guy who tells him that he left his wallet at the what is it, the automat or something like that. And then when he's trying to piece things together, so when he has this conversation with the guy at the automat that says, "Oh yeah, here you are, you left your wallet," he says, "When was that?" He goes, "I don't really remember. How long ago was it?" He goes, "When you left your wallet." Like, that's the other thing. You start to find out that people won't give details about anything. Everything's vague. Nobody knows any specifics, and nobody seems to care. Like, if you want to nail down a specific time, people just sort of hand wave it away. It's like, well, it was, a while ago and stuff. So he's on his quest for answers, and he's already not even getting like normal answers that you think you might get. And then we get to the really interesting part for the audience, which is now the cops who are investigating the murder show up, but when they're in the lobby, there's suddenly a different clerk. The clerk is a different person, but the clerk is acting as if he was the same clerk, saying that he interacted with our guy, who at this point is found out through the wallet his name is John Murdoch. So yeah, already at this point in the audience, you have the normal stuff that the audience would experience of sharing this ride with a character with amnesia, not knowing what's going on. But you have these other things that don't make sense, and you don't know why. Why were people just waking up? How come the clerk is suddenly a different person, but he's acting like he's the same person? So the movie really right off the hop gives you some, I don't know, gives you a pretty good mystery. And I think most audiences, really wanting to know what's going on, which is what you want. You want a plot that's going to hook somebody. So I really appreciate it for having all that stuff right from the get-go.
Yeah, really just kind of sets you up for exactly what's going on here. And then do we see Kiefer Sutherland first, or is it Jennifer Connelly's character?
I think it's Jennifer Connelly.
Okay, so then we go into her when she's singing in the lounge.
Which again just sort of gives you a good idea of sort of what this world is like. just the way the lounge looks and the way the music is. I mean, people are familiar with the song, and now the song is in a minor key, and it's very what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of haunting, I guess, maybe. Just to fit in with the atmosphere. Like, you get the feeling this is a nightclub that never plays anything upbeat.
Right. Always depressing. So.
Yeah, it doesn't fit into this world, which, as we'll eventually find out, doesn't even have sun. It's the ultimate version of like a film noir city. I mean, in most film noir cities, the sun does exist. We just usually skip past it or ignore it. In this, it really doesn't exist, which takes the trope to a whole new level. Yeah, so we have a man waking up in a bathtub, no memories. Oh yeah, well. Not on screen, but when he's leaving, we do get Kiefer Sutherland's voice, because Kiefer Sutherland calls him on the phone. Remember? Because he's the one that tells him to get out. They're coming for him. So Kiefer Sutherland doesn't appear on screen yet, but he does appear, or maybe they might actually show him standing in the phone booth. But anyway, we do sort of get a Kiefer Sutherland appearance, because it's him, the doctor, calling him up, telling him like, you need to get out of there now because they're coming for you. So yeah, so that's sort of added layer too.
He's really giving it his all, Kiefer, in this movie. He's really trying to
playing something against type, right? Which is kind of refreshing. I think a lot of people that are aware of Kiefer Sutherland, if they haven't seen this movie, they've seen him play a lot of sort of similar characters. Kiefer Sutherland is usually a pretty good sort of take charge alpha male type character. Usually a rugged heroic guy or maybe a sinister bad guy. But this is a different kind of role for him. He's an eccentric scientist who's not physical and all about the mind and stuff, and he's got like his interesting way of his speech patterns, his sort of hesitant
William Shatner-esque.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just cracks me up.
I don't know if that was his own idea or if he got notes from the director or what, but it works pretty well. It makes the character somewhat memorable.
Well, I was watching and I was like, this is probably the last good thing Kiefer did. Because, I didn't watch any of that 24 business he did.
No,
So.
I know that's what made him really big star was 24. And I mean, that's good. I like Kiefer Sutherland as a person, as far as I know. So, I mean, that's good. But, yeah. I mean, he popped up in movies here and there. That's fine. But this is probably it's not my favorite thing he's in because he's in like Stand By Me and The Lost Boys, but those are back when he's still like a teenager or at least playing a teenager, and he's really good in those. What's funny is how similar his role is in both of those movies, even though in one he's a vampire.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then he's in Flatliners is another big one I always think of.
Yeah,
just because that was chock full of the big stars of the day.
Yeah. But and he would pop up in more minor roles and stuff. Like he's one of like the Ku Klux Klan members in A Time to Kill.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think it's the only time you'll see him in a movie with his father, although they don't have any scenes together. Both he and Donald Sutherland are in A Time to Kill. That's a big ensemble movie with a lot of actors.
Yeah, I always heard they don't get along very well.
I think they've reconciled in recent years.
Really?
I think. But yeah, there was a long period where they just sort of avoided each other as far as I know.
Yeah.
But maybe my information's outdated, so maybe I'll look into that. Because I don't know, they're both... I like both of them as actors anyway. Donald Sutherland being like interesting because he's from New Brunswick, which is not really a place where big stars come from. He must be the most famous person from New Brunswick.
I didn't realize that.
But, that's where he was born anyway. I don't remember how long he lived there. But yeah, I like this movie for that you get Sutherland playing against type, a different sort of role. And I'm not going to go on too long about this, but I mean, I've always thought Rufus Sewell, who is our main character, has always been sort of an underrated type of guy. A guy that, had all the right things to be sort of a leading man in movies and never really got it. This is really his only big leading role, and this is, more or less a cult movie, not a movie that did well. But he was always there and to the side, often to be some sort of bad guy to play against that. I remember he was the bad guy in A Knight's Tale, for instance. He was the arrogant, mean knight against the dashing knight played by the departed guy who played the Joker.
Oh. I didn't realize he was in that. Nicholson.
No, the young guy, he's dead.
Oh, Heath Ledger.
Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger was the main character in A Knight's Tale. He was the young knight in A Knight's Tale. That might have been his first starring role.
Oh, right, yeah.
But anyway, Rufus Sewell was like the bad guy. Rufus Sewell is usually cast as sort of like kind of a bastard. But in this, he's our hero, if you want to call him that. And I don't know. And like I said, I don't want to go in too much about like him or anything, because the truth is the movie doesn't necessarily require great acting. It's not really that kind of movie. But at the same time, playing the role of somebody with amnesia trying to figure out what their life is got to be at least somewhat of a challenge. So, yeah, I can't really go too much about the acting, but I mean, certainly I think the performances are done well enough. You've got William Hurt in there as the hard-boiled detective Bumstead, and Jennifer Connelly, as we said, and then I can't remember the name of the British guy that plays Mr. Hand, but he's pretty interesting. Mr. Hand's a good, memorable type of villain with his own sort of speech patterns too. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're all really kind of hamming it up. All the visitors,
the strangers or visitors, or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. I love when they're all together, and he's going through the names. I want you to do this, so and so you do that. It's like Mr. Hand, of course, Mr. Face, Mr. Knight.
Mr. Book is the main
Mr.
guy.
Book, yeah. Really cool names.
Yeah, they're talking about the guy that got killed when they tried to apprehend him. And they go, poor Mr. whatever his name was. I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah. Yeah, he has a fairly early confrontation, too, with the stranger. So this is how you right away know that you're into something different than just, a guy with amnesia with the cops after him. Because this strange trench-coated group are after him, too, and they don't seem quite human. And then he manages to get away from them, perhaps by manifesting some sort of powers.
Right.
So now we know that there's a lot more going on than just sort of a standard sort of noir story, and this is going to be like a cyberpunk sci-fi type deal.
He can tune.
He can tune.
which is really cool. He's like, what does that mean? But and
Yeah.
he just like doesn't he collapse the ground underneath?
Yeah, they're on like what is it? It's like they're on top of like this thing. There's a big sign, and they're on the back of it. I can't remember. My vocabulary is completely failing me at the moment because I can't think of what that word is. But they're out
Billboard?
on the back. Yeah, they're on like the back of a billboard on whatever you would call you'd be standing on for it. I don't know, platform, I guess. Yeah, and he collapses it and makes them fall, and is able to escape.
And there's also a really young one, isn't it? Like a child version.
Just to add the creepy version,
Yeah.
they've got a boy, and they give him some really creepy moments too.
Yeah.
Like towards the end when he's caught, when they're trying to decide what to do with him, he's the first one that goes, "Kill him!" And also when they're about to catch him and he's hanging off the ledge, they all have like those special knives that they carry. He takes out his knife and puts it aside because he wants to bite him, and he starts biting his fingers. That's just them saying, "Yeah, let's make this really creepy. Creep up with the kid," which is fine.
Yeah, and we come to find out that when people die, they use their bodies. These aliens,
as
are able to inhabit. Yeah.
Yeah. What's eventually revealed is that this is some sort of weird grand experiment done by this alien race. Which is and every night they change things up and they use their own ability to tune. And here's what we'll get into some of the Matrix stuff, I guess. So now we have like a protagonist in a world he finds out is more or less artificial and is being controlled by some other group outside of humanity that has like weird agents that can come into the world and change things. And he's eventually going to find out that he's developed the power to change things too. So right off, pretty much exactly the same as what would happen with Neo in the Matrix. Except Neo's awakening, they never really give a good reason for it. Like Neo gets like contacted by other people that have been woken up or whatever, talking about like how you're not really there. That's the Matrix and stuff. And they just start talking about this prophecy, how you could be the one, And one of my big problems with the Matrix and all the movies is I find all this naming stuff really childish. It sounds dumb to me. You're the one. There's the Oracle. There's the gatekeeper. This like everything's the this, the that. And I find it all really cheesy and it just sounds really juvenile to me and stuff. But anyway, what we get towards the end of the Matrix is after they've had various confrontations and fights with the agents, is that finally he kind of like awakens to his powers, right? When he's fighting Smith, where suddenly all of a sudden Smith can't make a move on him and then he just easily dispatches them. They never really give a good reason for why that happens. In this movie, our character fully manifesting his powers is completely explained and makes sense, which is, so I'll probably do this a few times is directly make a comparison to the Matrix and say why it's better. But to this, when he's at his full power, you understand how it happened.
Right. Well, I mean, they even sold quite a bit of the set pieces to the Matrix, didn't they? Like after they were finished.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like a lot of it came directly from Dark City.
That's funny. But I really like Dark City's look because it's got that 40s, 50s film noir aesthetic, but it also has some German expressionism in there. People, if you're not as familiar with some of those old German movies that do that, but I mean most notably the famous one. The 1927 silent film, the masterpiece Metropolis, but also the way the strangers look and are dressed is very much based on stuff like, say, Nosferatu, the 1922 movie, which is again German expressionism. So even if you're not like a cinephile, you might recognize those references and stuff, and it works really well and it looks really good. And the whole idea is great too, because the idea is this is an artificial city that's just been cobbled together by the memories of people, so it doesn't have one uniform look. It takes bits and pieces from different eras and things and architecture. And it's really interesting seeing how when they change the city at night, parts go down and other parts come up. I always thought that was really cool. And if you've seen the movie Metropolis, it looks a lot like that in places.
Yeah, that's really cool when you first get to see like everyone's asleep and the city's changing. It's very, very cool. When they're out injecting people in the forehead. Yeah. With memories.
Yeah, so from the get-go, he's been told when he's been contacted, he claimed the doctor Shriver or whatever, he claims to be his doctor, And that's what he tells Jennifer Connelly, who is known as Emma at this point, because in this, at least in the latest reality that the Stranger Ship created, he is married to her, but he'd been seeing the doctor as a psychologist, I guess, because he's depressed because she had apparently cheated on him. Now, has any of that really happened? We don't know. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, at this point, they have the memories to make them make it think it has happened. So early on in the movie, he's on this quest for answers, blah, blah, blah. And she's just wondering, her husband, who she has recently had an affair with, has she really driven him over the edge? Has he now become a serial killer? And that's all sort of incidental because they could have made him one, but I think it's pretty clear that they didn't even make him be one. Mm-hmm. They've been doing the killings themselves. I mean, that last one that gets killed, they do it. So I guess that just shows that they do it.
Well, it's just like a big experiment, right? Like they're just like seeing what happens when they do things.
Yeah, when they do things, move things around, change things. Yeah, the first time you see it happen is really cool. When you find just the whole city goes to sleep and they just come in and start moving people. I like the couple, they just collapse into their soup. And then they completely change. It's like, okay, now you're going to be a plumber.
Yeah, one problem I did have is, everyone's driving and their cars slowly come to a stop. Like, is that what would happen if you just fell asleep while you're driving when your foot on the pedal?
I just believe that the machinery is also linked to their machine. So like their machine affects their machine. So like when it's time to stop the people, it will also just gradually stop all the machines. Mm-hmm. It makes sense to me.
Sure.
I figure because you'd have to put that fail safe in. Otherwise, you just have a bunch of disasters and fatalities every night, and they don't have enough people to replace them.
Right.
So they have to kind of take care to, as much as human life doesn't mean much to them, and they'll kill where they want. They can't just have a whole bunch die because they only have so many to work with to begin with. That's something that, like, towards the end of the movie is again left up to us. We don't to decide, like, how long has this experiment been going on? Like, there's a part towards the end where he's talking to Bumstead, and he just says something, or is it to Bumstead? I can't remember if it's Bumstead or the doc. I guess it's the doctor, actually. He says, so we were taken from some other place. So, for us, we can rationalize, okay, like, these were aliens that came to Earth and abducted a bunch of people and took them to this weird artificial place. It's like, but we have no idea how many people they took or how long ago it was. This could be going on for generations. These could be the descendants of the people who were taken.
Right.
Or maybe it hasn't been going on that long ago. Maybe some of these people actually did have real lives on Earth. We don't know. We don't get to find that out, but that's, something that's left up to us to determine or think about, which is kind of interesting. Again, they don't have to nail it down.
Exactly. I mean, I like that it's left open ended like that. Which like we said earlier, I think a lot of people don't like that. They like a hard ending. They want to know what's what happened, and nothing is left to the imagination.
The fact that the ending raises a lot of questions is what I like about it. Because you think, what now? Like, okay, he has, jumping ahead, people, spoilers, of course, we're into full spoilers, where he's now, he's wrested control of the world from them, taken them out, and he's turned them over to the star so they finally can have sunlight. And now he's creating a more ideal world for people to live in. But, it does raise questions. Like, he meets Emma, who has now been reprogrammed as Anna, and you think, is he ever going to tell anybody the truth? Or is he just going to let people live out idealized lives as he's created them? In a way, he'd be playing God now, but maybe that is the right thing to do. I mean, would it really help everybody to tell them that this has all been some sort of crazy experiment in an artificial world and nothing matters or makes sense? But now he's got a control of it. And he's going to let them live their own lives. They think, well, we're still not living our own lives, though, are we really? It's all, so all that is left up. We can decide what for ourselves. We can figure out for ourselves, like, what course he's going to take. To me, I figure he'll just do a light touch. He seems like the guy. He'll let things go as they are. He won't tell people, because this is probably the best thing he can do. He doesn't have the power to fly them back to Earth or anything, so he's tried to make an idealized world, so he'll do his best that everybody living in it can, have a real life where they are, in control of their own destiny, can make real decisions and stuff like that. I figure. So that's one of the things I like about the ending, is that it doesn't tell you what's going to happen next. It's sort of open-ended. It's like, okay, he's created this world that he's kind of in charge of, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I like that when it pans out there at the end, you get to see everything. It's like a spaceship, right? I mean, is that what you would call it, or
It's similar. I don't know if it's a ship, but it's like an artificial satellite type thing,
artificial,
right? They've
yeah.
created. It's orbiting some sort of a star, but the whole thing was because the strangers or whatever they are can't stand light. They have it turned away from. They have it turned around, which of course would raise, if you want to get really nitpicky, you'd be like, well, people couldn't live like that, right? If the Earth as it was stopped spinning on its axis, so that one side was permanently plunged into night, that would have catastrophic consequences. Like on all life, humans and plant life and animals wouldn't be able to live. So yeah, if you want to nitpick, you can say, how would people even live in this environment if they don't get sun? Well, okay,
well,
that's not.
I mean, could you supplement with like vitamin D?
Right, you could say again, maybe the strangers have some sort of precaution for this. Maybe something they're putting in the food or the environment makes up for it, right?
Right. I mean, we may be able to survive. Like, obviously, animals and plants probably couldn't. But I mean, there are none. So,
it's all connected, right?
Right.
You rely on it. As people know, like the food chain or whatever, it's all a very careful balance, and everything affects everything. So yeah, if this species dies out, it affects this species, which affects this and that, and so forth. So. But again, that's getting really nitpicky. And like you said, you could always just assume that the strangers had some sort of fail-safe against this, something that would make up for it. Again, maybe perhaps that's overthinking. but again, that's what's good about the movie. It gives you room to think about stuff instead of just answering a bunch of questions right off the bat. And to me, it doesn't seem like plot holes. And that's the other thing. As much as the movie raises questions that are relevant to the plot, all the questions that are relevant to the plot do get answered. We aren't left hanging with anything crucial. The stuff that's left up to us doesn't, the story is still complete. The stuff that's left up to us is the stuff that's left up to us, but it doesn't leave a big hole in the story. So I think that's done very well. Because, yeah, I mean, when a movie raises questions, you want it to eventually give you answers. You don't want to be thinking, what about this? What about this? What about this? I think all the important, essential questions are answered in the framework of the movie. So to me, it's satisfying. And just using that word again, this is actually, the ending is one of the main things I like a lot about it. Like, I think one of the main reasons the Shawshank Redemption is such a beloved movie is that for most people, like, of course, it's a really good story, really well told story, great acting, etc. But what really makes it for most people is it has such a satisfying ending. I get just as much satisfaction from the ending of this movie as from, say, the Shawshank Redemption. I just feel so satisfied, like, with how things turn out and what he's able to do. It's kind of like a triumph of the human spirit type thing that I like a lot. Maybe you could say cliche. I like what he says to Mr. Hand at the end, where he says, you were trying to figure out humans by tinkering and looking at what's up here. He's like, you were looking in the wrong place.
Right.
I don't know. You can call that a cliche or whatever, but to me, yeah, that's true. I like it. So yeah, to me, the movie's kind of a bit of a triumph of the human spirit, or whatever you want to call it. I think works well, and yeah, it just has some really interesting themes. We've talked about it before for other movies. One of my favorite themes in fiction or in storytelling in movies is memory. I love stuff about memory, and this movie, of course, talks about memory. Talks about how precious and important memory is to us, and how they make us what we are, and the whole idea of like how you're changing people by like giving them false memories or memories they can't really believe in anymore, and yeah, just what that would do to a person. You find out that all your memories aren't real, or fabricated, or that they were swapped with someone else. Like, yeah, that would just wreak havoc on us, because what are we if we're not our memories? Our memories build who we are.
Right.
So I really like that. There's other approaches to memories I like too that aren't necessarily in this film. It's not in this film, although I guess at least it is in this film to a certain extent. Then it gets wiped out by the other stuff that it goes by, which is, how much can we rely on our memory is something that comes up in other types of stories, right? Where people sometimes find out something that they remember was wrong, and it really changes things. And
oh man, yeah, I can't tell you how many times I was certain of something, and then I'm proved wrong. And what is it, the Mandela effect or whatever?
Yeah, that's that's the Mandela effect. I think is like when you're affected by like outside sources, so that everybody sort of believes the same thing, even though it's wrong. And that's what you can attribute to movies, especially when there's like lines that like it's like, you know, how they'll point out, you know, actually on Star Trek, the original series, they never said "Beam me up, Scotty," but everybody kind of remembers that they did. Everybody remembers that they did because they're just cobbling the words together and it makes sense. But the truth is, they said words around it. They said phrases that came close, but they never actually said it. And yeah, so that's usually what people talk about for the Mandela effect with film. It usually has something to do with like a famous line getting misquoted. Actually, for a film I watched just recently that we were thinking about doing for the show, what is it? The John Huston film, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Often, the famous line from that is, "Badges? We don't need no stinking badges." Again, that is not the actual literal line. It's three lines that kind of dance around that, but never say that literally. But that's just how it gets collectively remembered. So yeah, the Mandela effect is sort of like how everybody remembers something wrong in the same way. I think it's how we influence each other by the way we remember things. I think that's what it is. So it can apply to anything, but when it gets applied to movies, it's often something like that, like a misread line or something like that.
Well, it's like Darth Vader never says, "Luke, I am your father."
Yeah, exactly. He says, "No, I am your father." Yeah.
Which that may be Tommy Boy's fault. Because I know that's what he does when he's talking into the fan.
He's going, "Luke, I am your father." Great classic moment.
We're hitting all the classics on here, folks.
Yeah, and if you want to take another classic thing, it's funny. I was looking up this. I hadn't thought of this myself, but it is true. I was looking up on Wikipedia, and they were talking about how one of the critics said you can make a comparison in this to something that Plato used in the Republic, which was this thing called the allegory of the cave, which I did study back in university. I did do Republic, and the allegory of the cave is basically this: is this idea. He presents this idea of these people that have their whole lives have only lived in a cave, and it's like they're tied up or something. So they're up against this wall, and all they can see is the wall in front of them. And the only thing they can see on the wall in front of them is the shadows that are cast by this fire that's burning behind them. So the things that pass in front of the fire cast shadows in this wall. And that's all they know about what the world is, what they see on this wall. And the idea is one of them someday somehow escapes, and he gets out of the cave, and he sees what the real world is like. And he's amazed by it, and he experiences all this stuff. So he goes back into the cave and tells them, you know, what you're seeing isn't the real world. The real world's out there. It's not all shadows. You know, and they don't believe him, and they kill him because they think he's crazy. But that gets applied to all sorts of stuff, and you could say you could apply it to this too, because it's the idea is, once again, you have a character who finds out his reality is not what he thought it was, and in trying to restore the reality, he comes up against a lot of opposition. It's not a perfect analogy, but I see why people would use it. It reminds me of something from my idea of classic literature, which is Watchmen, where there's a great line in Watchmen where Laurie is talking to Dr. Manhattan. It might be even the part where they're on Mars, and she says, and he's talking about, how he perceives time, right? How he goes through time. So he's talking about stuff that's going to happen in the future as if it's already happened. And she's getting pissed off by it. And she's like, "You're just making it sound like it's all destiny and we can't change things and that we're all puppets." She says something like that. And he says, "Yeah, we are all puppets. I'm just one who can see the strings."
Oh, that's a great quote.
It's a good line. And again, that's kind of what we wind up in here is we find a puppet that has finally figured out that he's a puppet, but he can see the strings and he can see the people that are pulling the strings, and he's trying to fight against them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you imagine how shattering that would be? Like, the entire world as you know it is wrong. I think that's why my mind was so blown by The Matrix. Mm-hmm. I was, 18, 19 years old, just trying to, grow up and be a man or whatever. And it's such a cool concept. And why do you think both of these movies with similar plots or, similar plot elements came out right around the same time?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you that. I really don't know.
Isn't it strange though that they were, 6 months apart or so?
Yeah, it was something like that. Yeah, because this was in '98 and The Matrix was in fairly early '99, I think. Mm-hmm. But I know when I was watching the documentary part, Alex Proyas said when he first started writing the movie, he was writing it in '91, but it was very different back then.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, he was focusing just sort of on, he was focusing more on the detective than the guy he was after. It wasn't until a lot later that he shifted the focus to the guy the detective was chasing. Oh yeah, so that's another sort of great element that's going on here. Is not only have you got this man who wakes up, doesn't know who he is, and thinks perhaps he's a killer, and then you've got the detective who's chasing him. The detective who's chasing him also has to come to terms with the fact that the last detective on the case went insane. But what we find out eventually as the movie comes through is the guy didn't really go insane. The guy found out the truth even before our guy did, right? The whole thing was the previous detective. He was another one of the guys that woke up during the part. Like you said, it's not supposed to happen. Every once in a while, one of us wakes up in the middle of it while they're doing that. So, but he didn't have all the answers, but all he knew was like, yeah, forget this whole serial killer thing. Like the whole world doesn't make sense. And you know, you try to tell people that, like if you or I started talking to people, telling people that the world doesn't make sense, they're going to tell you you're insane, because that's pretty much what happens. But in the Matrix, it's almost a little too perfect, and that's kind of what I like about this movie. Is like the other movie's like a perfect computer simulation. Like you would never know. The only way people found out is by having people break in from the outside and you know show you. But in this, I like how like the world is totally flawed and messed up, but since it's all the people know, they don't think to question it. It's like because and anytime people are supposed to like think about it, their mind just drifts off because it's just like, well, when's the last time you saw daylight? I don't know, a while ago, I guess. Like, you know, it doesn't occur to them that no, you haven't seen daylight like ever. You have like this fuzzy, hazy memory of daylight, but you've never actually seen it. Day after day, it's just one long night, but it doesn't click in for them. And yeah, and things like that, or the fact that you just can't get out of the city. He's trying to find Shell Beach. He's asking people where Shell Beach is. Oh yeah, I know where Shell Beach is. And suddenly they can't remember, and they accept it. They just accept it. Well, I can't remember. You know, so it's part of the programming of being in this world. Is like even though there are flaws, you're part of it, so you don't start to notice it. I kind of like that the world is more flawed than in the Matrix, where in this is because it just shows how deep the programming goes. Where it's like it's just one city that you can't get out of. That's dark all the time, and the people still can't figure it out because of the way their minds are constantly messed with. And it also is part of the frustration of our main character who's trying to sort of, you know, wake people up. And they're not waking up. He's talking to Bumstead and he's asking them questions and they're just sort of like, you know, brushing it off like it doesn't matter. When, of course, it's the whole crux of their reality. And yet they've been programmed in such a way to not really question it. It's like, yeah, I've been out of the city. When was the last time? I don't know, a while ago. But I know I've been out because they know that there's supposed to be an outside world. Right. They accept that they're not actually ever seeing it.
Well, it's like the gaps in their memory, they just kind of skip over it. You know, they don't think about the gaps.
And I think that has a parallel to real life, because I think to a certain extent, people will sometimes do that.
Right.
Maybe not to that degree, but I think we've all been like in a situation where we couldn't remember something clearly, and maybe it was important, but then we're just like, you know, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
I'll go on with my day. I'll go on with my life now. Whatever it was, I forgot, and it doesn't matter. And in this, of course, it really, really matters, because they would explain the cracks in this false world, and yet no one's seeing it night after night. But yeah, I don't know how much. So the script changed quite a bit over time, just the way he was writing, and then when he brought in the other two writers, Goyer was one of them, and then the other guy, whose name I can't find. Hold on, I've got Lem or something. Yeah, Lem Dobbs was his name. Okay, yeah, I should know because he does a lot of the talking on the making of when they're talking about.
Oh, really?
Because what it was originally Proyas had written like this treatment for it and then gave it to him for feedback, and he said, you know, what can we do to? And he said, first of all, he had to take out a bunch of cliches. He said, I think originally he had Murdoch's name as Walker. It's like, you can't do that. Don't have the everyman character searching for existence, placing in the world or whatever named Walker. That's been done to death. So he told him to change that, which is true. And there were a few other things too that I can't remember. That was funny. And the other thing, if we're talking about Plato, Plato being a Greek philosopher, you could say like it also has a tie into sort of Greek mythology, because in all Greek mythology, not only are the gods super real, but they're super involved in the world. Like, according to Greek mythology, like, we're just playthings of the gods. Like, it doesn't matter what mortal people do, the gods are interfering the shit out of it. Like, it's true. So that's another sort of classical illusion, if you want one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this would later, besides The Matrix, do you remember, I never watched the film, but a few years ago, a movie came out with Matt Damon that seemed to have a similar idea. Did you hear of this movie? It was like called The Adjustment Bureau. It's like this guy, and he's like in love with a ballerina, and he finds out, I'm pretty sure he finds out, like, there's this like group of men like in long coats, and they're somehow changing the world in reality. I never watched the movie, but I remember seeing
Emily Blunt is in there.
Yeah, and I remember seeing a preview for it and thinking, that's an awful lot like Dark City, except, you know, it wasn't like a warish nightmare city. It was just sort of an ordinary world, more like The Matrix was going for. But I've never seen the movie, so I don't know if it's any good. But I remember thinking that immediately, that movie seemed to have a very similar concept to Dark City, perhaps just with some of the cyberpunk taken out of it.
Yeah, I saw it years ago. It was pretty good. It's based on one of Philip K. Dick's short stories.
Ah, okay. So it's actually, so it's not just ripping something off. It's from an older story. Yeah, so much stuff is based on Philip K. Dick.
I know, it's crazy.
Like, even if it's like really changed from the original story, like, that man was just an idea machine when it came to like concepts and stuff.
I think he got to see like some of the stuff from Blade Runner before he died.
Yeah, he did. He never got to see the finished thing, but like, he did get to see a bit of it.
Like some of the dailies or something.
Yeah. And it was really starting to turn him around, because he was very opposed to the movie at first. He was really opposed to it. And I mean, I love Philip K. Dick, and I love Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, but I've talked about it before. It's one of the few things where I think, yeah, the movie improves on it in every way. The movie is Blade Runner is a better story than Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. But again, I'm not trying to disparage the original. You couldn't have one without the other.
Right. Well, I mean, it's like, you know, Stephen King, you know, hates virtually all of the film adaptations. And, I mean, I don't really blame him. I mean, you know, how can you...
so half-assed and terrible. The one that,
but, I mean,
most people, like, a lot of people really like The Shining, and he hates it.
Yeah.
I don't like The Shining, but I don't hate it the way Stephen King does. I don't like it. I definitely think if you've read the book, it does not capture the feel of the book at all. But it does a few things that are memorable on their own merit.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I like aspects of The Shining. As I've watched it more and more, I like it less. You know, I don't know what it is, but I mean, stylistically, it's great, but I feel like it's a little bit long, and I don't know. I just don't think it holds up that well with multiple viewings. But you know, I mean, most people call it a classic, right? Like a classic horror movie. Like, it's probably up there with, you know, Dracula, Psycho, you know, stuff like that.
No, I've never held it in high esteem. I mean, I like Kubrick a lot, but I think it was one of the main reasons people give it that much. For two reasons. It's for Nicholson and Kubrick. Like, people love Nicholson's performance, and the fact that it's Kubrick, it's like, well, he's such a brilliant filmmaker, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I like Kubrick a lot, but by this time, he wasn't making movies I liked anymore. Like, I didn't like I don't really like Full Metal Jacket that much either. I think it's a okay movie. Like, I don't think he made bad movies, but I think of, both Full Metal Jacket and The Shining as okay. And I think not nearly as good as some of his earlier work, which is astonishing how good it is, some of it.
So did he go directly from Full Metal Jacket to his last movie, the Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman thing?
Eyes Wide Shut?
Eyes Wide Shut, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. There was a big,
That's like 10 years, man.
Yeah, it's like 10 years. There was a big gap. And at the same time he was doing Eyes Wide Shut, we talked about this, he was working on artificial intelligence. We did a show on artificial intelligence if people were interested. It's actually one of the shows where we are really quite critical of the movie. If people want to see one where we kind of not tear a movie apart, but where we're a little more critical, that's a good one to watch.
Yeah, so I think most people are kind of critical of that film. Kind of like one of Spielberg's lesser, appreciated films.
Well, the main reason we did it at the time was I was becoming aware in that year or so, or around it was one of those movies that was sort of being like rediscovered by a new audience. like, oh no, it was actually really good, which is fine. I mean, I don't agree, but that happens sometimes, right? You know, a movie comes out and it's largely dismissed, and then years later, you know, there's a whole new wave of people with a real appreciation for it that say, you know, and that's something we talk about quite a bit on the show for different things. We did it with what was the other big one? Oh, Heaven's Gate.
Oh yeah.
Heaven's Gate being the massive disaster it was in its time, but now it's a movie that's been reevaluated. A lot of people like. Although again, both of us, we weren't convinced either. Like I think both of us were pretty convinced of the problems of Heaven's Gate. Like I see a lot of the good stuff in Heaven's Gate, but I don't think like it was wrong that it was a flop. Like I get why it was a flop, man. Like I see the flaws. I thought
that's when you give a crazy person a lot of money.
Yeah,
like an unlimited amount of money.
Oh, the money he wasted making that movie.
Like, no, we have to wait for the perfect sun. We've missed the sunset. We gotta wait till tomorrow.
I don't like how the clouds look.
Yeah.
And his obsession with having helicopters on standby when he couldn't possibly need them. It's like, why don't we just let the helicopters go for a while? We're not doing any shots. It's like, I might need them. So he's paying like hundreds of thousands of dollars a day to rent helicopters to just sit there because he doesn't like the idea of them not being there, even though he's not going to, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, Michael Cimino.
Then they spent like days filming just like the whip scene when, what was his name? The main guy in the movie. He whips. Or he gets whipped or something. I forget what it was, but
was that Christopher Christopherson?
Was it Jeff Bridges?
Whoever.
It doesn't matter. But yeah, but
might have been Christopher Walken. I don't know.
I wanted to ask you: have you read Dr. Sleep?
I still haven't. You know, that's one I keep putting off and putting off and putting off. I think Ryan might have read it. I'll have to ask him.
I haven't heard like anything positive really. Everyone's just like, eh. So I don't think I'm gonna even give it a go.
Yeah, that's how I felt about his novels for the last like 15 years.
Yeah,
like they're not bad. When I was in Sydney over Christmas, as usual, I ran out of things to read. Like I bring stuff with me to read and stuff, but I eventually ran out. So I was looking at books that were in my old bedroom, and one of them was the book, I think it's pronounced Lacey's Story or Lacey's Story or whatever. Anyway, it's a novel of his from like 2005, 2006. And man, I read that book is like 700 some pages. I must have read about 250 and nothing was happening. And I was so mad. And I'm a pretty patient person. Like I'm all for a long setup and stuff, but like, if it was ever going to get anywhere, like I was just losing my mind trying to read that book. It was just chapter after chapter of this woman going through her. The whole thing is like there's this woman. She's like in like her 50s, and she was married to a guy who was a successful author, and now he's died. So now she's like going through all. I guess she's probably going to move or something. So now she's going through boxes of his stuff, and she's also having memories of some of their time together and some of their stuff, like how they met and stuff. And I guess eventually, you get to some point where she stumbles upon some sort of dark secret that shows like how he got the inspiration for his work or something. I never even got there, and I was like well over 200 pages in. And it was just her going through stuff. Couldn't stand it, man. I couldn't stand it. So that was my most recent try at a somewhat recent Stephen King book. And of course, he's so prolific; he's written like 15 novels since then, probably. The most recent thing that he did that I liked that I read was I thought Under the Dome was pretty good. Even though I've talked about this before, Stephen King he gives me hope. Even though he crushes me in a lot of ways, like in most ways he doesn't give me hope as a writer because he's so prolific and it seems so easy for him, and I'm so terrible at fucking even finishing anything. The one thing that gives me hope about Stephen King, and that maybe I could be a good writer, is like he's terrible at endings. He has no idea how to end anything. And Under the Dome, spoilers, is another one where he had no idea what to do, so he just blew everything up. And like Under the Dome, like you don't know what's going to happen, and then just suddenly there's a massive explosion to pretty much finish everything off. And
so
then
everything in the dome blows up?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I watched like the first season of the TV show.
It's really different from the book. I watched a couple episodes just out of order, but by then I'd read the book. Characters are completely changed or just eliminated. Yeah, it's very different. But anyway, the book was mostly pretty good, but yeah, it just didn't have an ending. And it kind of reminded me more of his older style, but I don't know, maybe I will try Dr. Sleep, because there's about 3 or 4 things he's done the last 10 years where I'm like, well, maybe I could give that a shot, and I just haven't. Instead, I've gone back and reread some more of his old stuff again. I'm like, maybe it's time to read Misery again because I like Misery so much. I'm not saying Stephen King's lost it. I'm saying Stephen King is so goddamn prolific that like it's now hard to find the quality, because it used to be quality, quality, quality. Now it's like average, average, average quality. It's all hidden and mixed together. You know, it's difficult.
But yeah, I mean, the guy's a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they just wrapped production on the film for Dr. Sleep. So
there is going to be a film, yeah. So maybe I should really try to get that read before the movie comes out. We'll see.
Well, and it's Mike Flanagan, you know, the guy that's done he did that Haunting show that you watched a little bit of.
Yeah, I got to finish that. I thought it started off pretty good.
I mean, I really enjoyed it. I watched it twice all the way through, so.
Yeah, I'll have to get back to it, because I watched like the first two and thought it was pretty good.
And so, you know, it'll be interesting. It's probably, definitely his biggest project he's worked on. He's done some, he did like the sequel to the Ouija board film.
Origin of Evil or whatever?
Something like that, yeah, which it was pretty good. And, you know, considering it was much better than the first film, which I never would have watched if it wasn't for the recommendation from someone. But he did the film Oculus.
I liked Oculus.
I did too.
I mean, it was a bit predictable, but it was still a good ride. Still a good ride.
It keeps you guessing.
To a certain extent, I guess. But yeah, I liked Oculus. I mean, yeah, so. But
I guess we've derailed enough.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Getting back to this one, said it before. This is a movie that Roger Ebert championed.
Yeah.
And he is on the extras on this, which is pretty cool. You know, I didn't get to, growing up in the 80s and 90s, we were both exposed to him and Siskel, although I never really watched his full show and stuff. They were like a lot of things. It's after they were both gone, or at least one of them's gone, Siskel's gone, that I kind of got interested and started like reading some of the stuff on their site. I used to watch the show a bit when it was Ebert and Roper, and anyway, I eventually got a feel for a feel for their sensibilities. And of the two, I definitely do identify more with Ebert. I think Siskel, his tastes are very different from mine for the most part. But there were still a lot of things that Roger Ebert and I disagreed on, and the main reason why I have a lot of trouble, why I could never fully respect the man, was because, you know, he never gave video games any respect, and he didn't educate himself on it. He just declared they weren't art because the whole point was to win, and then just left it at that. Like, he never actually, you know, looked into it and learned, and that really bothered me, because I was like, you could have learned. That's just being ignorant because you want to be. You know, that's just willful ignorance, which I get it. You're a film guy and you're dedicated to that. But that doesn't mean you couldn't look into some video game and see that there's actually quite a bit of artistic merit in it. I'm not saying you have to become a big fan, but to just say, no, they're not art. How can, because he basically, to him, there's no difference between, say, I don't know, fucking Tomb Raider, or I don't know, what's a really expressionistic one? I don't know. But any of the more cinematic ones the last few years, to him, that's like the same thing as like a game of pinball, which is ridiculous, you know?
Well, it's like, you know, Pac-Man, or, you know, like The Last of Us or something, you know?
Yeah, The Last of Us, to me, is the best zombie story ever told. I think it's a better zombie story than any of the zombie films I've ever seen in my life. And I like a lot of zombie films. And again, it's not exactly a fair comparison because it's longer and there's more you can do. But I'm just saying, yeah, it just really bothers me that he never took it upon himself to educate himself. He just dismissed it. You know, video games aren't art. The whole object is to win. That's stupid. I can't remember the last time I thought about winning a game. I guess that's what puts me different from some of the games. I mean, you still can, but that's how I'm different. You know, we talk about Orc and how Orc likes esports and stuff like that.
Right.
I just say that I'm not interested in going online and beating people, or them beating me, or winning. I'm not really interested in winning. I'm just interested in completing the experience. And that's what games are to me. I don't think when I die that I lost. I just think, okay, pick it up and go again, get better. So yeah, but anyway, getting back to Ebert, all that aside, of the two, he's the one I usually do respect more, and he says a lot of stuff about this movie that I like and I agree with. So I'm glad. I'm sure that he helped get this movie some more publicity, because his opinion, even after death, carries quite a bit of weight and stuff. And you know, I'll have to watch the full commentary with him, but I just today watched the part where it's a little introduction where he talks about some of the things he likes, which some of it's just like how much detail there is in the scene. He talks about how, like, they're putting detail in where you don't even really need it. There's a thing where he talks about when Bumstead has been talking to Emma, and they come out of the interview room and they go into the police station and they're walking, and he just talks about, how it's like this long hallway with people in it and the lighting. He's like, you didn't need to do that, but they did, and I appreciate that. But obviously he liked it for more than that, like some of its themes and its stuff, and being original, and twisting of reality and its daring look, layered and off-kilter grays, greens and black, make it click. There's another thing too. I mean, to get into some of the technical aspect of it, for the type of story they were telling, they did a good job with how they filmed it, because I liked how the camera moved in a lot of scenes, because there's a lot of long shots of people going down. There's a lot of long spaces, like long hallways or alleyways in this. But, the camera will be normal in most things. Here's your scene, the camera zeroes in on it, moves. But sometimes if you were following a character who was moving, what the camera would do is sort of move around kind of aimlessly, and then it would like stop at a weird angle, and I kind of like that. It gave sort of a dreamlike quality what's going on, and because the movie has such interesting architecture, it's cool to like be set up on a weird angle and see things kind of from an askew point of view, if you want. So I liked it for that.
Yeah, it adds another like unsettling bit to the film.
Yeah, on one level it's unsettling. On another level, it sort of comes back to being dreamlike and making you questioning the reality you're seeing. It's fairly subtle, but on a visual level, it's very effective. So stuff like that, I like it a lot for that. But
yeah, I mean, Ebert was. This is, I know I've told you this before. It was like usually I could, like, if he hated a film, I would go watch it, because generally I would like it. Like if he just detested it, you can go watch all the clips on YouTube, of them just, eviscerating films that, I think are really good films. So this is rare. I don't think I ever knew before, we were, doing some research for this show that he was such a big fan of it.
No, that's one of the first things I noticed when I bought this quite a few years ago, was I saw the thing about him on it. So that was something that anytime I bring him up, I always bring up to his credit, because I would often disagree with him on things too. One of the main things I disagree with him about, besides like what I already said, is like he doesn't seem to have much of a sense of humor. He seems to really not understand what anything funny is. He just goes, not funny.
He's very close-minded for a guy that probably
watched films and has watched thousands of films. Yeah.
I mean, for someone who probably considers himself an open-minded guy, he's very, like, as far as the video games go. Have you ever played the game A Journey? It's really like there is no object. You just run around and do what you want. It's not to win. Yeah. It's to explore.
What's the big one? No Man's Sky. Like that's the big thing in No Man's Sky. There's like a zillion different like possible planets you can land on, and it's just to explore. Yeah. So many. Yeah. The last like 10, 15 years. I mean, I know Ebert's been dead a little while, but well before he was dead, there was stuff like that. And plus, I mean, obvious to me, games were art from the get-go. Even games in the early 80s were still art to me, a lot of them. So, yeah, it just bothers me that, he would be closed-minded about that. And the other thing was, for film critics, the two of them would just, like, anything that was, like, I get, like, exploitative stuff. Yeah, I mean, I get that most of it's trash, but they just seem to always be, like, I don't know, reviewing it under the wrong parameters.
Well, it's like because you don't like the subject matter, you immediately form an opinion about it. It's, again, just a very closed-minded opinion.
Like when you're going to watch some, like, I don't know, some sort of, like, revenge flick movie, I don't think it's fair to really judge it on the same merits that you would, say, judge Schindler's List. Like,
exactly.
It's not trying to be anything like, like that. It's doing something else. And I felt like both of them will be rigid on that point sometimes. Like, I was just like, well, then you might as well, like, just dismiss the entire genre then.
Exactly. We're about to watch a, low-budget slasher film from the 80s. I mean,
and that's what really bothered me about Siskel. Siskel would get all moralizing on it. Like, he would actually talk about, like, how, like, these movies were, like, bad for, like, society and kids and stuff. And Wasn't there a thing where like one of them like I don't know, like basically tried to incite people to like write letters to somebody that was involved in Friday the
It
13th?
was the Pamela what was her name? Betsy Palmer.
Oh, the one that played it Voorhees.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no wonder she had such a negative idea of the films going forward. If that was the reaction, that's not fair for her. But I mean, why? Why is it so immoral for her to play a mother that goes crazy and kills people, and yet you think something like whatever happened to Baby Jane is fine?
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure they both think that like what's her name's performance, whatever happened to Baby Jane is like, you know, seminal and amazing. And I'm not saying that's not a better performance. Certainly, it's a better performance. But they're both doing kind of the same thing, and yet you're applying a certain set of moral standards to one and not the other.
Right.
You know?
Well, they would comment about how bloody it is and gory it is, but that's what those films are. Like if they weren't that, the fans of those films would not like it. So
yeah, they just never accept things like that.
They've got to deliver what people want to see when they want to go see a cheap, cheesy slasher film. Want to see some boobs and some blood, right? Isn't that like, that's just the formula at that time.
And it's not like Ebert doesn't know what like that kind of stuff. It's like he co-wrote fucking Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, which I love, by the way. I fucking love that movie. I love that movie to death. So it's not like he didn't know what it was like to like be a writer or whatever, or somebody in a position that's going to write kind of an exploitative movie that's kind of trashy and appealing to the lowest common denominator. Like that was the point of that goddamn movie. It was like tits, tits, tits,
right?
And stupid jokes. That was and yet he can't seem to understand it when other filmmakers do it.
Yeah, but you're not going to put that on and be like, "Oh, this is going to be some classic cinema right here." It's.
Yeah. I mean, in our capacity, we try to be objective and everything like that. But at the same time, I realize you just can't always approach films the same way. You can't judge them all by the same standards and stuff like that.
Speaking of him, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like when there is a film like that I dislike, I'll dislike it for pretty specific reasons. I don't just dismiss it as a whole for nitpicky reasons because it wouldn't make any sense because there's other films maybe that are like it that I do like, so it wouldn't make any sense. I don't like. It's funny. So I read a comment the other day. I don't even remember. I guess I must have at least briefly showed up on the episode where you guys did the commentary on Cobra. And I said, I remember basically that I showed up, I didn't have the movie, and I said, I'm not going to ruin your fun time because everybody knows I don't like this movie. I think it's a pretty crappy movie. And I think I pretty much left it at that. I know I didn't just go off and tell you all why you were stupid for liking the movie. I did not do that. I know I specifically wasn't going to do that. I think I said, you guys know I don't like this movie, blah, blah, blah. I have a good time watching it and stuff like that. Some guy, like, at some point, like, commented and said that I needed to be punched in the face. I'm thinking, wow, I didn't even go, and I know that and that was just because I said I didn't like the movie, because I know I did not go after the movie. Because I remember, and not specifically the details, but I remember that I had the mindset, and I even said to you guys, I'm not going to go off. I'm not, you guys are here to do a commentary in the movie. I'm not going to sit here and fold my arms and tell you why it's stupid and you're wrong. So I know I didn't do that. I think I just had some brief remarks saying that I didn't like the movie, and that was enough to make this guy so pissed off. But yeah, but at the same time, I don't really like Cobra, but I don't say Cobra really sucks, and I don't judge it the same way that I would judge like a much more serious type of movie. But I feel like sometimes like Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel would do that sort of thing. Like if they were going to go after Cobra, they would they would judge it the same way they were judging Magnolias or something like that, which I just don't think is the correct sort of mindset for a reviewer or whatever you want to call.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of cheesy stuff, low budget stuff for entertainment value. When I'm rating it on IMDb, I'm not like 10 stars. There are people that do that kind of stuff, like Van Damme's new movie, 10 stars. Because you like that stuff so much, but as compared to well-made movies, the qualities that make a good movie,
Well, I guess I do judge them by the same standards as far as like maybe giving it a solid rating, but as far as like being critical of the movie or whatever, because when you're watching like maybe a sort of a silly action movie, I'm not going to critique it for perhaps some of its silliness, or failing to, achieve this, that, or the other thing, because
Right.
the movie was never trying to do that in the first place, I guess is kind of what I mean, right? Like,
Like
I'm not going to say, like, when I watched Rambo 3, there was never a moment where I felt like there was, I don't know, some sort of, I don't know, character epiphany or amazing development or some great emotional moment, because the movie's not going for that.
Right.
So what? So am I supposed to pick it apart? Like, but if there is a movie that tries to do that and fails, then I think that's fair. But there's no point in critiquing a movie that's not attempting to do certain things and saying that they failed at it. They didn't fail; they didn't try.
Right. Like, the writing in Rambo 3 was not what I was expecting. So,
Wasn't up to the standard of the series.
Yeah, the acting wasn't there. Of course, it's not. Stallone's, generally not a very good actor. I like a lot of stuff he does.
Yeah. Anyway, this is one that Roger Ebert did really like, and I think that's had a pretty positive impact for the film. I think it's helped raise some awareness and get some people into it, because I'm not saying it's wrong that his opinion carries weight. I mean, he's made lots of good arguments for films and stuff. I mean, it's always going to be an objective thing, a subjective thing. I mean, we're always going to have things that we disagree on, no matter what. But it's kind of cool that this is one he liked, because I think it gave it some attention that it might otherwise not have gotten. So, yeah, I'm looking at some of the negative opinions on here and stuff like that.
It's a 7.7 on IMDb. That's not too bad.
It's really good. Yeah. So yeah, there's quite a few people that really like it, and I would definitely count myself among that group. And again, and it's not just because I like the genre. Although I said we like the genre, because you still have to do well. But I do like the elements it has and how well it uses. We talked about the City of Lost Children on this show, and this has some visual stuff, and even some stuff about like messing with people's dreams and minds that comes from City of Lost Children, which is pretty cool. Then even the earlier movie by Genet, Delicatessen, has kind of that bleakness that fits into this movie. And we've already talked about how that comes from something like Brazil, and everything flows from the great gift that is Blade Runner.
Right.
And the director himself said that like that end battle where they're like up in the sky having like their psychic battle was like a direct homage to Akira, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, 10 years prior.
Oh yeah, the films. Yeah, the films were separated by about 10 years. Yeah, I don't know if he meant the manga or the anime.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I mean, either way. Because, I mean, the manga ran from, I think, 82 into, like, 92. Because, as we said, one of the things they had to do for the anime was they had to come up with an ending, because they weren't at the ending yet, actually, in the manga. And the ending's definitely not as good as in the manga, but it's still not a bad ending. But this ending I always found very satisfying. And again, everything's well explained to you, and it's a much better moment to me of him using his powers, because it's completely. I mean, this time it's one of the few times where everything is spelled out for you, but you want it to be, because the whole climax is now that they've got him, they're going to imprint their collective memory on him, because they think the experiment is over, it's culminated in him, and he's become too dangerous. So now they're going to basically wipe him out, and instead, his last act of betrayal, the doctor who they've been using all along. And the whole idea, and that's explained too. He asked, like, why did they let you know what's going on? They said, well, they just don't understand the human mind the way a human can, so they need my expertise in these matters. Anyway, and he gives his final, like, fuck you to them by having a special vial of specially creative memories that he gives him, in which his memories are full of him himself teaching him how to use his powers against them, which I think is really cool. Yeah. I like that a lot. So, but whereas in the Matrix, Neo says his powers just sort of kick in without explanation, just like,
well, he's the one.
He's the one. But they were saying that all along, and they had the thing, he's not the one. Well, maybe he is the one. He's not the one. And then boom, yes, he is the one. But why? Just out of nowhere, it looks like they're going to lose. Then suddenly his powers kick in, and he kicks Agent Smith. And there's the other thing, the other parallel, and there's many where the reality thing is, one of the main agents, they're literally called agents in the Matrix, Agent Smith, is very much like Mr. Hand, in that he becomes kind of personally obsessed, like beyond just like what's going on. He takes like a personal vendetta against the character that's fucking up the system. In the Matrix, Smith, has a personal vendetta against Neo, to the point that he actually goes against the system just so he can fight him. Like and that's how, and it happens even more in the later movies, right? He actually infects some of the others and takes them over because he has this personal grudge. Mr. Hand is kind of similar. He doesn't actually wind up going against his masters, but you can see that they're already kind of freaked out by him, because what he does is he volunteers to get imprinted with the next set of memories that was meant for Murdoch into himself, which they think is like a crazy thing. They think those are human things. Like, you don't want to infect yourself with that. He's like, well, it's the only way we're going to catch him. And when he gets it, it does give him sort of a new appreciation for what it's like to sort of be human. And he does have some moments where he kind of sort of grasps it, even though you don't know how true it is. Like, there's that cool scene where he meets Emma down by the water, and he talks to her. I like that scene. Like, I mean, you can watch it and think he's just full of shit and he's just lying to her, but part of me thinks he's actually has been somewhat influenced and touched by these memories. Like, it's given him some sort of sense of what it's like to be human and like care about people and stuff. I feel like he did get something in there. I don't know. So that's another thing, between this and the Matrix is that Mr. Hand and Agent Smith are kind of have their similar roles to play. And call me biased, but yeah, I like Mr. Hand more, because by the third movie you're just sick of Smith. Of course, by the third movie you're kind of sick of everything.
I think it would hold up more if it was a standalone film nowadays.
That's what I've always been saying. Like, it was a pretty good movie. It wasn't. I didn't think it was amazing. It was pretty good. But I feel like the sequels really drag it down and taint it.
I mean, considering that the sequel's done by the original guys that did the first film, or people that did the original film, that's probably one of the biggest disappointments I've ever seen. It's not like some straight to DVD sequel, where you expect it's going to be crappy, whatever.
No. These are two massive sequels. The big idea, they're being shot back to back so they can be released quickly. Big budget, because the Matrix is this huge thing now, and all these fans are so excited. I was almost afraid when I came out of Reload. I was already I was disappointed. This is a movie I didn't have to think about and reevaluate. I was disappointed right away in Reloaded. But everybody I saw it with was at least saying, maybe they were trying to convince themselves, or maybe they were happy. And so I didn't say anything. But
really?
I was unhappy. But I was not happy right I was not happy right at the get-go. And again, the stakes weren't as high for me because I wasn't as huge a fan of the first one as other people. But like, the only thing I like about the second one is it has a good action sequence. The whole like highway chase thing is a very good action sequence. But again, the more they complicate the story and drag it out, the more stupid it gets.
The albino guys with the chase on that is really cool.
Like the best thing about Matrix Reloaded is like Monica Bellucci's tits.
I don't even remember. I've seen it, I think, just the one time.
Yeah, well, she's in the scene where they have to go meet the Mandarinian or whatever the fuck his name is. She's like his mistress, and she's wearing like, she's always had like very well endowed, and she's just wearing some sort of like fancy dress that like makes her cleavage like
some like S&M outfit. They're always wearing like leather with straps and spikes everywhere and stuff.
Yeah, I always thought that was a little odd.
It's funny.
It kind of makes sense, I guess, in this context, though. So you find out that you're living in the Matrix and it's not real, but now you're one of the people that knows and you're woke. Right. And now when you go in, you can just like dress like however you want. So you're just like, this isn't real, so let's just be badass like superheroes. So like put on super long leather coats and carry our guns, and because it's just playtime, I guess I figure I have to figure that's the way they approach it. Otherwise, because if they're being serious, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's like that's what cool was in the late 90s.
Yeah,
like leather and guns and.
I can remember like near the beginning when he's first like getting reached, where he's like in his office and he gets like the phone FedEx to him. Remember, he takes the phone, he pushes a button, and the part pops out. Like, I remember people around me thought that was so badass, like that the phone did that.
It was like a flip phone type thing. It just like,
It was like.
I think I had a phone like that.
I think if you pressed a button, like the bottom part would pop out. Like it didn't fold up. It's like flipped. It like popped out or something, and people thought that was super badass. I mean, I know that always movies were about like selling stuff, but this is when I was kind of finally starting to really understand it, because people wanted like the stuff that was in the Matrix, and then, then soon after that, like you had the James Bond reboot, which was all about selling shit.
Oh man, all about it. I'm looking up the phone from the Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had a phone that did that.
That was one of the takeaways coming out of the Matrix. I mean, everybody liked the movie, and it was a fun movie and stuff, but I remember people like talking about that phone. Like, that was a cool phone, man.
The worst thing about the Matrix was the bullet time, and how even to this day it's still being done to death.
I hate all the parodies of it. I never once saw a bullet time parody that was actually funny.
Oh man, like Scary Movie did it. I think every movie.
Yeah, Scary Movie started it. And it was bad then. Like, I like Scary Movie, but the bullet time stuff is horrible.
It's like Charlie's Angels. Maybe they were parodying Charlie's Angels, but it was the same. Where they come up and like a big butterfly kick from Karate Kid, but
yeah.
Just
and we talk about action and fight scenes a lot, and the Matrix does a pretty good job, but it also ushered in a whole era of people doing the same thing and getting everything wrong, so it all looks like shit. I mean, the only reason the Matrix even worked using that was because they actually had like real, like, who do they have? Like Wu Ping, what's his name, and Corey Yen, I think. Like, they had like the actual guys there. Otherwise, it would have been a fucking disaster. And it still doesn't look great. I mean, when you look at it, I've never been a fan of fights that look like dances. Fights shouldn't look like dances. They should look like fights. And they play it kind of fast and loose in the Matrix, where sometimes the fights look like fights and other times it just looks like ridiculous dancing, especially a lot of this hand stuff. Like there's a part like where he and Agent Smith are grabbing at each other. It's just I'm like,
oh, I know, yeah.
I'm like, I don't care if you're a master of Wing Chun. You don't fight like that. And Wing Chun is very handsy if you look that up. But yeah, so the Matrix was both a blessing and a curse when it came to action, because it showed some new techniques that could be done really well, but it also introduced a whole like generation of terribleness.
Well, I mean, essentially, where there is no choreography, it's just cuts. Where Liam Neeson could be an action star because you can just cut around it.
Yeah.
We talked about that when we watched. What was that? The Raid.
Oh yeah, because we were talking about good action, and that's the thing. There's. Did you read that list I sent you that Sean Baby wrote about fight scene mistakes? It's really good.
I did, but that was a while back. I don't remember it.
Yeah. Well, it makes really good points. One is like trying to make fights look like dances. Another is like not properly establishing sort of like the rules of the world, so that you don't understand the stakes. And the other, of course, is like just the quick smash cut editing, where like anybody could look like they're fighting just because they're like moving around. I like how he was beginning, because he's talking about, okay, like here's a good thing. Like he says a good way to tell if a fight scene is good is how well you could like try to describe it to somebody who hasn't seen it, or like a blind person. And he's talking about Daredevil. He's talking about the Daredevil scene from Daredevil season 1, episode 3, I think, where he has that. It's all in one shot part where he beats up those guys in the hallway and the camera doesn't move. And then he's just like, he's talking about a Jason Bourne fight, and like it's all fucked up and he can't explain. He's like, then I don't know, he teleports, or I don't know, an arm comes up, and it's so true.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of those Jason Bourne films. I've seen parts of a few of them.
The first one has a really good car chase. I'll give it that. There's a really memorable, probably one of the better car chases of the last like 20 years or whatever. He's in that, where he's like in one of those little tiny European cars going through a city. It's pretty good, but yeah, apart from that, like nobody cares. And again, using that sort of fighting things, they like waste it, because there's a fight scene where we got an assassin played by Scott Adkins fights Matt Damon, and Scott Adkins' talent is mostly wasted, because he's a guy that can actually do stuff, because they have to be telling it, because Matt Damon's a guy that can't do stuff, right? So they have to think it in such a way. That's what one of the main things of action movies all throughout time is. You'll often have the good guy played by an actor that can't really fight, and the bad guy, since he's not important, can be a real martial artist who can fight, and they have to come up with ways to make it look like they're actually even. And you get a lot of that, and that's not impossible. There have been movies where they pull it off, but most of the time, no.
Isn't that like when Jet Li, like Jet Li was too fast for the cameras or something like that? Was that the guy you were talking about?
Yeah, that's what they said on the set of Lethal Weapon 4.
That's right.
On Lethal Weapon 4, they were telling Jet Li to slow down because they couldn't follow his movements and stuff like that. But I actually think Lethal Weapon 4 does a good, like that fight he has with those two is a good example of how you do it well. Because Jet Li's character is clearly a better fighter than both of them. But they take into account real life things. 1, there are 2 of them. 2, they're both bigger, heavier, and stronger than him. And 3, they're willing to cheat. So that fight to me is a satisfying fight because it actually shows like, because that's the other thing you don't want to see. You don't want to see like it's annoying when you see like somebody like where just common sense tell you there's no way that person beats this person or whatever. You know, a fight scene has to be done in such a way that like it doesn't have to be realistic, but it has to do something that clicks in your brain that makes you accept what you're seeing instead of it just being like, well, that would never happen. That's ridiculous. Which is pretty much like every fight scene that like Steven Seagal's ever done. You should watch the list again because it even includes one of Steven Seagal's like most ridiculous fight scenes. It's like from some movie from a few years ago where he spends half of it sitting in a chair. He's literally sitting in a chair fighting this guy who's doing all these flips and kicks at him.
That was probably his idea.
I'm sure it was his idea.
Hey, let's do it where I'm just sitting down the whole time.
I'll still kick his ass horribly, of course, because I'm an invincible destroyer.
Let's do it where I'm eating a cheeseburger while I'm fighting him. Yeah, I'm trying to find the list that you had sent.
I love everything Sean Baby did. I'm so glad that I was so happy when he showed up on Cracked a few years ago because I always knew who Sean Baby was. Because 20 years ago he was an unknown guy doing a little column at the end of EGM called The Rest of the Crap, where he would like have to review a horrible game. He's just one of the best comedy writers ever. I love him so much. And he's a big martial arts fan, so it's like he's something he's really into. Actually, remember when Yui Bull said like he would box these people? Remember that?
Oh, right.
Well, Sean Baby's one of the ones he ducked because Sean Baby actually trains in Muay Thai and could actually fight, and he like just completely ignored him so he could like beat up on like, you know, fat, out of shape critics.
Really? Okay, so I never knew that.
Yeah. No, there were a whole bunch of people that he challenged, and there were at least a couple people that like a couple people accepted because they thought it was a joke, and a couple of people accepted because they were willing to do it. And Sean Baby was one of them. He just completely ducked him because I think he looked into it and found out that Sean Baby, one, was not that old. He was probably in his mid-30s at the time, and he was actually somebody that did train in martial arts. Now, an amateur martial arts, but still somebody that knew something. Because I know one of the guys like who thought it was a joke, like I don't know, Yui Bull like literally like just kicked the shit out of him, and everybody was completely shocked and appalled by it because they all thought the whole thing was a joke until he started actually throwing punches at this guy. Like, what a dick you are, Yui Bull. I mean, it's one thing to make awful movies, but just like his whole attitude is so awful.
That's. What did they think? Like, I mean, they thought he was just going to get in there and they were going to play around. I mean,
yeah, I guess that's what they thought.
Yeah, well. And plus, that's a boxing match. I mean,
yeah,
we're not talking about like Conor McGregor here. If you're, I mean, even if you're a Muay Thai fighter, you're probably all of your weapons are
but it's
limited.
But it's Yui Bull. If you're a Muay Thai fighter,
well, I mean,
boxing is like your number one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, kicks and knees are an important part of Muay Thai, but trust me, I train Muay Thai, and we spend almost 70% of the time is hand stuff. It's the punching combinations.
I just think of the clinch stuff. You do the grab the head, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, we do all that. And my favorite stuff is the kicks and knees because
because they're awesome.
No matter how much I train, my punches are never going to be a strong. I'd like to think I'm at least a decent puncher for somebody my size and weight, but I mean, I'm not. Let's not fool ourselves. You know, I don't have big guns. I'm not. You know, if I ever get in a real fight where I really have to fight, I'm going to try to rely on a kick or two. Or a knee or something, because that's where my power is, and also I think it would probably surprise somebody because most people aren't trained and they're not expecting that. So if it ever happens, I think I'll probably try something like that. But still, yeah, in Muay Thai, anybody with a Muay Thai background, even an amateur, will have pretty good, at least have good sense of what to boxing. So yeah, sure, a professional boxer against a professional Muay Thai in a boxing match is always going to go to boxer, but yeah. But I'm pretty sure Yui Bull realized that Sean Baby was, like, again, a guy in pretty good shape that actually knew something about fighting, so just completely ducked it.
So he was just like all the fat, out of shape guys, like all the
And some of these guys are really old too. They're like probably like in their like 40s and 50s and stuff. Uwe Boll's not young, but he wasn't old really at the time either. I don't know. Like Uwe Boll's a big German guy.
Like Harry Knowles or something. Like, I'm gonna beat the shit out of you, Harry Knowles. I'm gonna beat you out of your wheelchair.
Oh my god, that'd be funny. I don't remember who it was, but there was at least one guy that he really beat the shit out of him.
Yeah,
and nobody watching could believe it. They're like, holy shit, he's really doing it. Like I think nobody thought it was real until it actually happened.
It's like do you remember in the like 90s they would get these like washed up actors to fight each other, and
they do celebrity boxing matches.
Celebrity boxing, yeah. It was like, I remember William the Refrigerator Perry, the football player, fought like Manute Bol or someone. The guy was like 8 feet tall, basketball player.
Wow. Yeah, I never saw any of them, but I remember hearing about some of the results. I know that like fucking Tanya Harding beat the shit out of somebody.
She was actually, I think she went on to have a boxing career after that.
Yeah. Makes sense. She was naturally athletic. So that makes sense to a certain degree. Plus she came from like a weird white trash background, so she had a chip on her shoulder.
I'd like to know how much of that's true, if it was as bad as that movie portrayed it.
Yeah. The best thing about that movie is that even though I always knew the story pretty well, what I never saw too much of, and that it reminded me, was that crazy bodyguard guy. Because that guy's out of his goddamn mind. Yeah. Of course, like he's one of those guys that like makes up crazy lies and totally believes them. You know, talking about he did like black ops and all this stuff. Like he's so desperate for this that he actually believes in it, even though it's complete horseshit. You know,
it's like Dwight from The Office. Like, you know, he thinks he's
that kind of thing. Yeah,
this like. You know, I collect weapons, so I'm obviously a badass at everything.
Yeah. So, like, if you were, like, to prank him by, like, sending him a message saying, look, you're the CIA recruiting him, he would totally believe it right off the bat. Well, of course they would. Somebody of my skills, you know. But, yeah, Sean Baby's always been one of my heroes. I love him. So, I mean, it's a good list because he makes good points, too, but it's also very funny because he's got a great, funny writing style. I'll have to dig out some of my old EGMs from back then, because that's where, as far as I know, he started. And he's one of the first people I heard like talk about like UFC stuff too, because he was a big Van Damme fan. He was talking about one of the Universal Soldier movies, not the last one, but the one before that, which was the first time they had like an MMA fighter in there. And he's talking about how like different it was to like see a movie where suddenly they're using more like realistic type fighting for like the guy would like jump on people, like, you know, take them down and then just hammer away at them, which is not very cinematic. It's not something you usually see in movies like that, but that's what this guy brought to the table with some Russian guy. And that's what he does in the movie, where he would just like torpedo at people, bring them down, and then just smash away at them like 37 times. And they're like, okay, that's a take.
So on the fight with Uwe Boll,
Uwe,
a producer of the show, this was like on G4's Attack of the Show. Then asked Sean Baby if he would come and spar and take the place of the host of that show. He said he trains Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, stating that boxing is to fighting what Hungry Hippos is to fighting. But that he was eager to fight Boll nonetheless. When Uwe heard this, he wanted to know his age, his height, his weight, fighting experience. Since he learned he wasn't fighting a midget, he said he sent information to Boll, after which Boll chose not to appear on the program.
Yeah. Yeah, see, as soon as he found it was somebody that he couldn't just push around, he dropped out. You're all
probably half his age, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess Sean Baby probably be in his mid to late 40s about now. Something like that.
I mean, Uwe Boll's probably at least 65 or so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he would have been younger then. He definitely would have been younger. Like I said, as soon as it's somebody he couldn't push around, he jumped out of there. But yeah, Sean Baby is a big hero of mine. And I just like that list too, because it is actually very good points about fighting in movies. As he said, The Matrix did a lot of good, but it also did a little harm in that arena. But oh well, what can you do? Because I mean, they came from a good place. Like they specifically were influenced by very good fight movies, like
right.
Like especially probably most notably my favorite Jet Li film, Fist of Legend. Like that whole part, the dojo scene with him training with Morpheus is basically a riff on the dojo scene in that. And they do the same thing where they try to establish, where the ceiling is because they want to show that there's no wire work. Yeah, I'm not a fan of wire work, which is something Jet Li got into later in his career. Stupid.
I like some of it.
There's a few movies that I have. My favorite movie that features heavy wire work is Iron Monkey. Iron Monkey's really good. And you understand why it was needed because a lot of the fights are basically kind of impossible. Because you have people like fighting like up on like dancing from like pillar to pillar and stuff. Like it's all really high up and stuff, so it's fine. But yeah, I don't know. Like some of his movies, the fighting's okay, and then the wire work kind of comes in and ruins it. Like Romeo Must Die. Like most of it is pretty good, and then when you get to the end fight, he and the other guy are just doing like these impossible kicks, like 8 feet in the air, and it looks stupid. It's too bad because the rest of the movie looked okay.
Mm.
But,
yeah,
I'm not going to hang those. Yeah, I was big into those. Yeah, and as I said, The Matrix helped kind of. I think we talked about this before. There was sort of like a weird sort of false start in the early 2000s of sort of like kung fu movies being brought back, and I think The Matrix was part of the reason for that because The Matrix was one of the first Western movies that took like guys from that scene and used them to like choreograph and direct action scenes, which was a cool idea and stuff. I think. Yeah. But then you have mixed results after that, and a few of those Jet Li movies, they just sort of run together in your mind, like Kiss of the Dragon and stuff.
Yeah, that's another one I liked a lot at the time.
It's not great, but again, it has its moments. It does have its moments.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like it's all bad.
Oh, man, I was there opening, like, Danny the Dog or whatever.
That's a great movie.
What's the other title?
Anyway. It's called Unleashed.
Unleashed, yeah.
Because it actually has some good drama in it,
Yeah.
Yeah. Unleashed is awesome. Yeah, that's one of my favorite Jet Li Western movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with guys like Jet Li, Jackie Chan, I have to like split their career between what they did in China and what they did over here. And they both have done some decent things over here, not the greatest. Yeah, and yeah, Unleashed to me might be his best Western movie. Really like that movie.
Well, what would you say is Jackie Chan's best Western movie?
Let me just think for a moment. I'm trying to think of his Western movies. He did less than you'd think.
Well, I mean, like Rumble in the Bronx was, right? That was like filmed in Toronto?
Yeah, but I don't consider that a Western movie because it was a completely Chinese-made movie, right?
Right.
Shot, in Chinese language. I'm trying to think of like English language movies. Basically. So
we're basically like Rush Hour and
that latest one he did was actually one of his better ones.
Yeah, The Foreigner.
The Foreigner's really good. Yeah, at least the first Rush Hour is good. They get kind of silly after that, but the first Rush Hour is pretty good. And again, it's not going to set the world on fire. It's amazing. And as I said, from like a social standpoint, I think that movie did a lot of good because it was a movie that had two leads of different races and neither were white and like nobody cared. It was a big box office hit. It had a Chinese guy and a black guy, which was kind of a big deal, really. That usually if you have two leads of different races, well, one of them's going to be white at least. And this, neither lead was white, and they showed. It doesn't matter. You don't always have to, think, oh, no audience is going to watch this, and we're still living in that world. We talked about it before. It's still a slow grind for some of these people, especially like Asian actors. Like, where are the leading Asian American men and women and stuff? Like, are there still people saying, "Oh, demographics aren't going to like it"? Like, fuck off, that's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I agree.
And I know we talked about before, when we were saying about the Ghost in the Shell thing, right? Like, perfect opportunity for an Asian actress, Asian American, Asian, whatever, but just an Asian of Asian descent actress. Perfect opportunity for it. But no, let's get Scarlett Johansson because she's a mainstream movie star and she should just get everything. Like, let's not try to expand. Let's not try to be true to the story. Let's try not to be like expand something. Let's try not to help a demographic. Let's just do what we always do, which is the rich get richer and everything gets dumber.
I feel like we're moving in the right direction, though.
We are, but it just sucks when there's missteps like that along the way. Is I guess what I mean. Yeah,
That's the studio's fault.
Exactly. And I hate to say it, but yes, I do blame Scarlett Johansson for taking the role. You know what? You're not a starving actress. You're not, oh, it was a big opportunity for me. No, it wasn't. It was just another cash grab for you. Because I don't believe for a second that she felt passionately about the script or she was a big fan of the anime or the manga. I don't believe that. So, okay, I guess I'm being all nerdy now, whatever, and nerd raging. But I honestly think, yeah, that was a movie she could have stepped away from. I mean, she didn't even step away from the thing where she was going to play a transsexual until like there was a whole huge public outcry.
Oh, she's not doing that? Okay.
Yeah, and then she's like, oh, I guess I shouldn't. But she was going to do it. It wasn't until there's a big backlash.
They're mad because she's not?
Yeah. We talked about this before.
Yeah, I know. But...
And I realize that it is tricky in some situations, but I mean, I don't know. Like, for instance, here's one. People actually were mad about the whitewashing of, what's his name? Oh, shit. Peter... Why can't I think of his name? The little person actor.
Oh, Dinklage?
Peter Dinklage. People are upset about Peter Dinklage playing the main role in like a biography of the guy. I can't remember his name, but he was the famous little person. He was in the James Bond movie, and he was on
right.
Fantasy Island, right? Like I think he's like from the Philippines, right? And people were upset about that whitewashing. Well, I'm just thinking, well, that's just because there just aren't any actors. You know, there's very few little person actors to begin with, and now you're trying to find like a Filipino one. Like, good luck. Like, so I think that's stretching a little far, getting mad, saying it's whitewashing that Peter Dinklage played the role. Because I'm just thinking, well, they're just working with what we got here. That's not Peter Dinklage swooping in and stealing somebody's role. Like, I just think that's, you know, that's what the pool is available at the time. So you can't always go exact. It's problematic, but it's getting better, as we said.
I'm trying to find that guy's name. I'll know it when I see it. The tattoo was the character.
Yeah. And he was super famous and lived a crazy life of excess. Like, he was like hookers and blow and everything.
Herv, I'm not sure about the last name. I don't recognize that. Oh man, he committed suicide.
Yeah, tragic life. I've never seen a single episode of that show, which he's most famous for, but he's in The Man with the Golden Gun. So
I've never seen it, but you know his lines from it. You know his famous line.
I don't even know that really. I know
plane.
I know he's the guy that welcomes you to the island. He's kind of like I know he's like the welcoming committee and stuff. It's funny thinking about how TV's changed, even in the last few years. So I've been watching That 70s Show from the very beginning because I haven't watched any episodes of it in a million years. It was a show I really liked when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I'm up to the 4th season. And there's already things like even from that, and this is not that long ago. This is like less than 20 years ago that I know that like you would get in trouble for now. And one of them, they're talking about Fantasy Island. So, you know, it's one of those scenes where they're all baked, right? Where they're all baked and they're throwing out random stuff. And they're just talking about like, it's like, if I was on Fantasy Island as that guy, you know, you can have any wish. You'd be like, I wish not to be a midget. It's pretty simple. Now, you know, everybody flip out about that first because of the word midget. And the other thing, the very idea that they're suggesting that they would wish not to be one, you know.
What's wrong with that? You know?
Yeah. But that's not even that long ago, but it shows how much things have changed. Because now I feel like if you tried that in a sitcom now, people would flip out.
Man, I was watching a comedy special the other day. It was like, this is so un-PC, but it was funny. Everybody loved it. You know, it was, you know, he was picking on everyone. I can't remember who it was. It was, Don Rickles.
Oh yeah, Don Rickles. He was like the king of that stuff.
No, but he was like, I mean,
Don
race
Rickles,
stuff. You know,
he totally gets a pass though. He gets another era pass. He's dead now, I think. But I mean, he always had the. He's from another era. He got that pass. Now, some people might say he shouldn't. I don't know. I'm just saying. The comedy, you know, breaking barriers and testing all that stuff, and we could endlessly talk here about, you know, what you could consider going past the line or what's acceptable. I don't know. I'm not the one to say it. I just know what I think is funny and what I think is not. And I get that it can seem hypocritical because there are some times where comedians say something where I think, oh, that is too offensive. Not usually. I don't think I'm very sensitive compared to the average person, but I mean, so I don't know. So I'm not going to sit here and try to dictate to people what is acceptable and what isn't.
I mean, it's like, you know, Richard Pryor stuff, you know, he talked crap about white people all the time, you know, and it was funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's...
Well, now we live in an age where white people are maybe the most sensitive they've ever been.
But I mean, it's comedy though. You know, it's I don't know. I feel like people don't know how to take a joke anymore.
Yeah,
and that goes for everyone. But
yeah,
that's why comedy's not going to be funny anymore if you're afraid to offend someone. You know. But yeah.
That was quite the rabbit hole from Jet Li and Sean Baby and everything. But yeah, this movie didn't have any fight scenes. It wasn't that kind of movie, but I did enjoy. I did enjoy the telekinetic stuff at the end. Again, it's not the greatest effects by today's standards, but it doesn't look nearly as hokey as so many of the CGI and stuff effects look from back then. And it looked pretty good. The stuff where the buildings are moving around and going up, which again you can see in some of the Akira manga. There's something else that's more like that I can't think of now, but yeah. So anyway, what else there was? We talked about casting and we talked about themes. And we've talked a lot about the style. I mean, that's probably the thing that jumps out the most is the style and the aesthetic and stuff. Trying to think if there's anything else really to cover about it. It is too bad, it didn't have much of an effect when it came out. But it is good that it's gained an audience since. And it has influenced various people going forward, including Christopher Nolan, who said, that was a movie that had an impression on him. You can see that Christopher Nolan has kind of a similar style of that. And I've still never seen Inception, but I guess Inception has like buildings going out funny and stuff too. So at least he admits to that. I'll give Christopher Nolan credit for admitting his influences where certain people don't. Can't remember his name, but you know who I mean. The guy that did Requiem for a Dream.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's the only movie of his I actually like.
Oh, yeah. Not Darren Aronofsky.
Yeah, Darren Aronofsky. Yeah, Darren Aronofsky. I think that's still the only film he's done that I like. So there's a few. Now, of course, there's a few I haven't seen.
Oh man, yeah, I gotta disagree with you there. I'm pretty much on board with the majority, but you hated him from the beginning. You hated Pie.
Oh, I hate that more than anything. More than
it's actually one of the films I had on my list when we started doing this show.
Speaking of a movie of '98, that might be the movie of '98 I hate the most. See, I still want to see The Fountain. I haven't seen The Fountain. But yeah, I didn't hate The Wrestler. I just didn't think it was any good. I hated Mother. I couldn't even get through Noah. I refused to watch Black Swan because it's outright theft. But
of what?
Of Perfect Blue. But I do
that's right.
And that was my point about at least Christopher Nolan admitting this guy wouldn't admit. Of course, eventually he sort of did. First he refused, then he said, "Oh well, maybe," and then he said, "Oh well, yeah, I've seen." Really annoying.
He probably thought, no one's seen that.
But yeah, so I definitely like Requiem for a Dream. I say it's a really good movie, maybe the best like drugs movie for like showing the effects of drugs and stuff like that. I really like it, but I've never seen Below. I don't even know why I want to see The Fountain, considering I don't like him very much, but I've always been interested in The Fountain.
See, I like Pie. I like Requiem for a Dream. I don't like The Fountain. I like The Wrestler. I like Black Swan. I haven't seen Noah, and I really like Mother a lot, too.
We won't get into it, but man, I really can't believe you like Mother. Mother just pissed me off from almost the opening frame, and it just got worse and worse as it went, I felt. The more it went, the more annoyed I got with it. But anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm open to doing a movie I don't like on the show, but we can't do Pie. I just can't. I can't do Pie. That's way too much.
No, it's fine. I took it off my list.
That's over the line. I'm not going to say, we can't do movies I don't like, because I'm not going to be rigid like that. All right.
Next week, we're doing American Beauty.
Yeah, but I had to put my foot down with Pie.
We're doing The Big Lebowski.
Yeah. So have you seen anything recently? We can talk about that.
I've seen probably nothing good since the last show we did.
Or anything that's new. Because I've seen some things that are new. Or newish, anyway.
What did you think of Romper Stomper? I saw you watch that recently.
Oh, it's really good.
Was that your first time?
Yeah, it's my first time. I've always heard of it. I knew what it was and stuff, but I'd never actually seen it. But it was on Prime, so I took the opportunity. It's a good movie because, again, it just shows this is it. Like, it doesn't have to get on a high horse and, like, teach lessons or moralize or anything. It's just like, boom, here it is. Like, here's, like, these neo-Nazis or whatever, and this is what they do, and this is the life and stuff. Like, it just shows it, period. It doesn't have to make any sort of clunky morals or anything like that, or, So I really appreciate for that. Okay, I have a question about that, though. Okay. So, and reading the Wikipedia article didn't help, even though there's a whole part on it about the music. How does this work? For the soundtrack for that movie, did they either A, just make up a bunch of racist songs, or B, did they actually pay, like, hate group bands for their songs? This seems like it's good that the music on the soundtrack is authentic, but it seems very problematic to me because I don't know how you do it without either just creating a hate song, even though it's for, like, a movie, but I mean it's still a hate song and can be used and taken and sung, or you're taking previously existing hate songs and actually, like, giving credit and money and publicity to the people that made it. It seems like a very problematic area to me.
Maybe they just totally just stole them.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, what are they going to do?
I don't know. I mean, these certain of these groups do have rights, like they're on and they are on record labels. Like Screwdriver was on a record label forever. They're like the most known, probably.
I know nothing
about. Because I mean, the fact is, well, I mean, there's no law against, like, making hate music, right?
Sure.
Most people don't want to make it. Most people don't want to distribute, but you can find labels that will, distribute it and stuff like that, like, because it's free speech. So I just think it's very problematic making a movie. Like, it's good. It's authentic that they have, like, these, skinhead songs, these songs. It fits the movie, but at the same time, it seems like, are you creating new hate music just so you can make a movie? Or are you crediting already established hate music? Either way, it seems like a kind of like a bad thing.
I bought the soundtrack, so
that's what I mean. Can you buy the soundtrack? And what does that mean if you buy it? Is that supporting the people who made the film, or is that supporting the people that made the music? I don't know. To me, it just seems like a very odd area.
Well, it's Australian, right? So maybe it's different. The what?
The songs are Australian.
They are, okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
maybe
there are Australian hate group.
I don't know anything about hate music. I've never done any research.
I mean, it's not big, right? It's a very niche market, but it's been around since at least the 70s. There's been, like, skinhead, like, it's like punk stuff. It's like, oi, oi, fuck the...
What's a word that rhymes with Jew?
Yeah. And that's what's going on in this thing. It's like, bash the yellows, bash the Jews, all this stuff, And it fits, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be in there because it fits the movie.
Sure.
Like, why wouldn't it be in the movie? But yeah, I wonder about that kind of thing. Like, for instance, in the movie Green Room, the only song that they show being played is actually one that's anti that, because they do it to rev up the crowd. In Green Room, they're a punk band that gets booked at, like, a white white supremacist type thing, and to, like, piss them off, they play the song, like, Nazi Skinheads Die or something, which is a real song, which is a punk song, which is against that kind of music, and that's the only thing that's in there. So see, they skirted around it by, like, having a band that doesn't do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's the environment that music would be big. I mean, I know Skinheads, but yeah, I've seen Green Room.
Yeah.
Okay. What'd you think of Green Room?
It's fine. It's fine. It's not amazing. It makes me feel bad because I think it's the last thing Anton Yelchin did. It's a good enough movie, for what it is. It's a different sort of role for Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
He's like the leader of them.
Well, he is bald, so
he's already halfway there.
He's bald and white, so.
But it's a pretty good movie. Just, works sort of like as a thriller. They have to get out and stuff, and it has some cool standoff stuff in it. It's not amazing, but it's a decent movie. Certainly worth watching. But yeah, Romper Stopper was good. I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. Obviously, I guess that's where Russell Crowe started.
That was one I was going to put on our skinhead theme list.
Oh yeah.
I had a few more.
I'm a big fan of American History X.
Like The Believer.
I like The Believer.
There's a few more on there, but
there's the one that what's his name did?
The British one. Fuck.
Anyway, there's the one that Harry Potter was in that wasn't too bad.
Oh, really? I may not have seen that one.
It's not amazing. It's fine. He's like an undercover agent that like infiltrates one. What the fuck is it called? Imperium. It's called Imperium.
Oh, cool. No, I haven't seen that. I'll check that out.
He's like a FBI agent or something that infiltrates a group. I've always liked Daniel Radcliffe. I think he's really good at an American accent. Like, he doesn't sound all weird and out of place like Orlando Bloom or somebody. Like he actually seems believable. And he's really good at going right. I've seen it in interviews where he goes like right in and out of that, like from his normal accent to that. He does it really seamlessly. It's pretty good.
Made in Britain was the one I was trying to think of.
I don't know that one, so I'll have to seek it out because I don't even know that one. How old is that?
It's 80s, I believe.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one that old, really.
I'll tell you who's in it. Is Tim Roth.
Yeah, Tim Roth's great. But I think Romper Stopper is like the oldest movie I've seen, about that kind of stuff. That would be like 92. Which would have been right when that was like a really big thing in Australia too. Like the late 80s, early 90s, there was a lot of activity with that stuff going on.
Yeah, see, I'm not familiar with that at all. I know some of the stuff that was going on in Britain, but not Australia.
Oh yeah,
it's all
had a big wave of it too. Well, when I say big wave, I don't. It was everywhere. I just mean these groups are always pretty small, but they can still make a lot of noise and cause a lot of damage at certain points and stuff. It also highlights like something that maybe people over here are less aware of, which would be like a large. I mean, it makes sense because Australia being so close, it's a large South Asian population living in Australia. In this, so we're used to seeing a lot of movies where we've got like skinheads and stuff that are like attacking like Jewish people and black people and stuff. But in this, the victims are Vietnamese, which is a bit different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They also do a good job of standing up for themselves in it too. And actually, I'm always a person that says, violence isn't the answer, but I actually think what they did was right. Because in the scene, the scene is the Vietnamese guys, their father has bought the bar, which was their hangout, and the three Vietnamese guys are there. So the punks get up and say, oh, no, there's Asians in our hangout. And so he goes and gets his other guys and brings them in to attack them, and they're beating the shit out of them and saying they're going to kill them. And one of them was hiding or whatever, or saw it, goes and gets a whole bunch of other guys to come and rescue them. And that's what happens. A whole bunch of other Vietnamese come in and fight them off. But then they continue chasing them and chase them all the way to their hideout and burn it down. I think that's the right thing to do in that situation. I would do the same thing if I was part of that group. I wouldn't be like, let's just fight them off. Let's follow them and burn down their fucking clubhouse. Like, I think that was, and I know you would say, that's just more violence. Should have just defended yourselves or left it at that. No, I was right with them. I was like, yeah, chase those fuckers down. Like, I don't know. I thought that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, part of me thinks that, it's not going to stop there if you don't do something drastic like that.
Yeah.
If you don't fight fire with fire, it's never going to stop.
Yeah, exactly. So I applaud, well, I mean, it's characters, it's not real, but still, I thought it was a good decision by the characters that they were just like, we're going to show them that, you can't just get away with attacking our place and threatening our guys and stuff. It actually leads to some sort of, even though it's very serious, some unintentionally sort of comical moments in it and stuff like that, because they're just talking about like the Asians coming, just like there's thousands of them. Like, oh my god!
I watched.
Yeah, they're calling them gooks. That's right, gooks.
I watched this film I wanted to recommend to you. It's called The Night Eats the World.
I don't know that at all.
It's 2018. Kind of like a lower budget. It's a zombie film, but very much reminiscent of Last Man on Earth or Mega Man.
Oh yeah.
I think you'll enjoy it.
I'll have to look into that. It's funny. Maybe someday they'll actually make a good film of I Am Legend.
Mm.
They've made 3 across like 4 decades. And they're still. What's funniest too is like I remember like a few years ago when the latest one came out, the one that was actually called I Am Legend came out. The author of the book, can't remember his name, all of a sudden said, it's funny. Hollywood seems to have always had like an obsession with you know, making my story into a movie, but they've never really been interested in the story itself.
Yeah.
All three are pretty bad.
Damn, can't think of his name. The writer you're talking about. Yeah, but no, it's a really good film. It's you know, more of a study on this guy going crazy from being lonely.
Richard Manson, I looked it up.
Yeah, that's it. Then you know, actually the zombies. It's one of the better zombie films I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that's good. I kind of have lost hope for the genre for the last few years, but which I mean was only because there was sort of an oversaturation, right? There were kind of too many, kind of in the mid 2000s. Sure. You know, it came back for a while with you know, Shaun of the Dead 2004, and then we had the remake of Dawn of the Dead, and then everybody was getting in on it with stuff the last few years, and a few zombie comedies and stuff that were, I don't know, there's gonna be a Zombieland sequel finally. Seems too late.
Now that all those actors have petered off, now they're gonna go back to what made them famous.
Like, I like Zombieland a lot, but it seems far too late. 10 years.
Absolutely, it's too late.
That's just too far, man.
Way too far.
But
we'll see. Look at the girl, the young, that she was a child in the first film.
Yeah.
She's
like what, like 23? I don't know, something like that.
Abigail Breslin, was that her name?
I know who Abigail Breslin is. I just don't know if that is a name. That is somebody.
Whatever the child.
I just don't know if that's her. It could be. It could be.
One of the Fanning girls. I think it's her.
That's actually one of the reasons why. Speaking of The Last of Us, I'm really not interested in The Last of Us sequel because I don't really want to see Ellie older. I liked Ellie when she was like 14 or 15 or whatever. Like, I'm not saying now that she's like in, I guess, in her earlier 20s, she wouldn't be interesting anymore. I don't know. I'd rather, if they made a Last of Us sequel, just have different characters. I don't feel like picking it up, you know, this many years later with the older characters. But anyway, we'll see how that works out. But yeah, that's good. I'll have to look into that. So it's more about like the isolation, really, than the zombies. That's cool. Because
it's like really into music, and it focuses on, you know, a lot of that as an aspect of it. So it's a really, really interesting film. I watched it, and then I went back and I watched about half of it because I wasn't really paying attention to the first half. I didn't really expect a lot out of it, or what I saw. I watched it on maybe on Amazon. It like recommended it to me. And yeah, that is Abigail Breslin.
Okay, yeah. I know that's a name. I just didn't know that was actually her. Certainly wouldn't have known her way back when. So I guess not really anybody would have.
She did like Little Miss Sunshine. Is that the name of that movie with Steve Carell?
That was a huge movie that I never saw.
I didn't like it.
That was like a darling movie. Like, people thought it was so clever and so cute and everything, and it just didn't have people in it that I cared about. Like, I guess, I mean, you know, what's his name was riding that wave of fame from The Office, for instance. So he was in it. Steve Carell.
I think that was his first Oscar. Oscar.
I have not liked him in movies. I can tell you that much.
Grab. I'm trying to think of what you would call it. Well, he was trying to win an Oscar by being, you know, playing dramatic roles. That
movie, like, at least won a Golden Globe or two or something. It wasn't something. It was a real critical darling.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Would not shut the fuck up about it. And I've seen scenes of it. It's come on TV now and again, and I don't know. It's never seemed interesting to me. It seems like a really haphazard type of movie.
I mean, it's just a very basic drama. It's just not that great.
Yeah, not into it. I mean, I'm not against watching it start to finish sometime, but it wasn't a priority then. It's not a priority now.
And I also watched Overlord.
Yeah, where'd you see that?
On a streaming website.
I guess that's what I'll have to do. I remember kind of wanting to see that in the theater, and I didn't. It's funny. I finally saw something at the theater the other day. It was my first time since, I think, Halloween. I think the last thing I saw in the theater before that was Halloween. So I usually almost always see something around Christmas, but I didn't this time. So
there's nothing's out. I mean, there's nothing. It's.
I'm gonna go see Battle Angel. It's probably bad, but I'm gonna go see it.
Yeah.
I feel like people leave that movie because it was a movie that many years ago when it was first announced I was really interested in, but so much has changed and happened that like nobody even cares anymore. In fact, what's his name's not even directing it. It wasn't even going to direct it, but he was originally going to direct it. James Cameron, But then he was just like, "Ah, you can have it, Rodriguez." So I guess that's who directed it. But I'm gonna see it. I don't have any hopes for it. It doesn't look very good, but I just feel a certain allegiance because years ago it was something I cared about.
It's all CGI, right?
The main character is completely CGI, which I guess will be sort of an issue for some people. It looks like it's integrated pretty well, though. I mean, they knew the movie wouldn't work unless they made it integrate. So I don't know. I saw a pretty good preview for it the other day, and it looks fine. But I just don't have hopes of it actually being that good of a movie. And its February release date doesn't exactly suggest they had much confidence in it either.
Yeah, it is Robert Rodriguez.
So it is kind of a downtime for movies. But I just mean, even when bigger movies were coming out in November, December, even if there were some I meant to see, I didn't see them. Overlord was kind of one of them. So what do you think of Overlord? I don't know any of the actors in it. Not one. I looked them up. I don't know anybody in that movie.
You'll know.
It's refreshing in a way.
Kurt Russell's son's in it. You'll know him. Wyatt Russell.
Okay. I guess
Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn's. I think that's one of their kids they have together.
Maybe I've seen him in something. The guy that played Han Solo in Solo looks like Kurt Russell's son to me. He looks like Kurt Russell. That was one of the reasons I could not get fully into Solo. It just reminded me more of Kurt Russell than Harrison Ford. So Overlord was good?
It was different than what I was expecting. I was expecting like a full-on like Nazi zombie movie, and it's
not? They certainly made it look that way.
No, it's really not. It's really more of like they're doing experiments, and it's not like it's a horde of zombies. You see a few, but it's really not. It's not bad though.
Yeah, I want to see it.
I'd say it's well done.
And I almost saw it in theaters, and then I didn't.
Such an odd idea that, I mean, I guess they were doing all those weird experiments. So many people think that, that would be a cool idea.
I've seen the idea a lot in video games and stuff.
Yeah. It's like Wolfenstein turned into a movie.
When I saw, that's what I thought it was. When I saw the preview for it first, I thought it was a Wolfenstein movie.
That's what I thought about the whole time. So yeah,
Wolfenstein movie that well. Work. Why don't they do a Wolfenstein movie? It could work. Like me, most of the time I don't want a video game movie. I'm like, no, bad idea. But I think a Wolfenstein movie could work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I've liked like even the newer Wolfenstein games. I've liked.
Yeah, I haven't played one in a long time. But that series has kept the quality up pretty well over the years. Like it hasn't had any low moments or dips. Got to give them credit for that. I saw Roma because everyone was watching it. I liked it, but I didn't. It didn't have the effect on me that it obviously did for a lot of people. Because a lot of people think of it as like this really moving, great, amazing thing. I thought it was okay. It's worth a watch, but I don't know. I just couldn't connect to the characters or something. I guess because I know where the emotional beats were happening, but I didn't feel them the way I guess a lot of audiences felt. Like, I'm not saying like it meant nothing to me, but no, it didn't click with me the way it did with other people. And I don't think there was any real reason for. I don't mind a movie in black and white. We talked about this. I don't see any reason for it to be in black and white, except that they wanted to say that it was artsy. Like, I don't know. It looks fine. It looks good, and it's fine in black and white. But I don't know. It seemed like an important movie to watch. And if it was right there on Netflix, I watched it, but I don't know. It's a good movie. I just I couldn't really connect to it. I'm sure like it's good for like Mexican people because it gives them some representation. A good Mexican story. That's good, sure. And it's about sort of an interesting time in Mexican history when they had some of those protests going on. One of the more famous protests that happens in the movie. Well, at least a piece of it. Some of the characters get caught up in it. This massacre that happens where like government troops—they're not even real government troops, or these groups that were like they're basically thugs that the government trained to like stick on demonstrators. So a part of that's in the movie. That's not what the movie's about, but there's a part where that spills into the movie. So people aren't aware of the history there. It gives you a little idea of some of the civil unrest going on in Mexico in the early 70s.
Yeah, didn't they riot over like bananas or something? I don't. It was like I don't remember
if it was that one specifically. There was one there was a banana riot. I don't know if it was that one or not. There were a few different ones, with student demonstrations turning into riots.
Yeah.
Governments coming down. Yeah. But yeah, what a lot of people maybe didn't know was, yeah, it wasn't just like official government troops, but there were like these groups of people that were hired by the government to basically act as like thugs. And there's a character that gets involved in that's in there and stuff. But I mean, that's just a piece of the movie. The movie is just more about this character, this young woman who's a maid for like a middle class family, and it's fine. I liked it, okay, but I don't know. And I'm not saying it shouldn't win awards. I don't know. Fine.
What is it nominated for best foreign language?
It must be. It's already won like stuff on the smaller circuit. I don't know how these things are judged. I know it's won like some stuff at the BAFTAs and stuff like that. Anyway, it's fine. I would recommend people watch it, but I could not. It didn't move me. And the stuff I saw on Twitter was obviously an outpouring by a lot of people that were very moved. They were very moved by this movie. It didn't do that for me, but it's a subjective thing.
I'm on Rotten Tomatoes right now, just by chance, and Shoplifters has a 99% fresh rating.
So that's actually in theaters again, and I missed it again. Because it was one of the movies that I could have seen at the film festival back in September before its international release, and I had to make a choice between that and I think it was The House of Jack Built, so The House of Jack Built. And now I was looking at my theaters, and that was at theaters again recently. Yeah, the Japanese film. So maybe it is around. I don't know. I'll have to see if it's still around or not. But I remember at least last week it was there, and I couldn't go because of some conflict or something. I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" But speaking of,
you were talking about it when you were going to that festival.
Yeah, it was one of the ones I marked off. I really wanted to see it, and then so now I've missed it twice at least. But I went to the theater on Sunday night with Ryan. Saw a Chinese movie, The Wandering Earth, big sci-fi movie. It was pretty good.
Oh, really?
I liked it. It was on my radar because it's based on a short story by this author. His name is Cixin Liu, who is a big sci-fi author over in China, and finally some of his stuff has been published over here. And I've been reading his most famous trilogy. There's the book called The Three-Body Problem. I just loved it. I couldn't believe how awesome it was. And it's the first in a trilogy. And I'm just on the second book now called The Dark Forest. And the third one's called Something's End or something like that. I can't remember. I don't have the third one yet. But I love it. I hadn't read the short story, but this movie is based on the short story called The Wandering Earth. And it was really quite a good movie. I liked it a lot. China's sort of like first like big sci-fi movie, really.
It's called The Wandering Earth?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm not even finding it.
Yeah, it wasn't at the small theater here. It's at the big theater outside. That's why I was hoping I could get Ryan to go with me, and I did, so I wouldn't have to take the bus there. But he liked it too. It was a pretty good movie. Like, not amazing, but a good movie. I liked it. An interesting concept. And pretty well executed. It's a movie that's like riddled with heroic sacrifices, though. There's just so many characters that die, like doing some sort of heroic sacrifice. Like at one point, you're wondering, is anybody gonna survive this movie? Like so many people die, so it gets a little emotional at times, maybe a little over the top in that way. But pretty good. I liked it quite a bit. I was definitely glad I got out to see it because one, I needed to see something in the theater anyway, and two, in a way, at least I'm sort of supporting that author. I don't know how close it is to his original story, but because I didn't read it, but I don't know. He's a really good writer. I mean, from what I've read, really good writer.
I don't think I've seen anything since Wreck-It Ralph, where Ralph breaks the internet.
Yeah, I saw that. You're right. It's kind of disappointing. It's not nearly as good as the first one. I'm with it, and they just didn't. It was like they weren't interested. Like one thing that really threw me off was like how like in the first one, like even though Ralph and the girl are the main characters, they would still flip back to Felix and stuff Felix was doing.
Yeah,
this movie just doesn't do that. It flips back to him like once or twice, and he's doing nothing. I kept expecting there to be scenes where he's like doing something, but they were like, nah, screw him. It's all them. It's all about friendship and being overbearing or something. It seemed like kind of a stupid message. Like, don't be too overbearing to your friends. Let them do stuff without you or something. Okay. Thanks, Disney. That's a really important. Like, that doesn't seem like the most important lesson to make a movie about, but okay.
You're still going to be friends even if you don't see each other very often.
Yeah, don't be super clingy with your friends, I guess. Okay, thanks. That's a great lesson. But yeah, I mean, it had some clever parts, but no, I was expecting more because the first movie was pretty good. I didn't see that in theater, but I mean, I saw it. Yeah.
The only part I liked was when she went to like Disney. She went to the Disney World.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job of, you know, poking fun at their own princesses and stuff like that. You know, they did a decent job of that.
But the rest of it was, I didn't really like the first film that much. I was expecting this one to be a little better, and it wasn't. So they've been on kind of a miss streak for a while, Pixar.
Yeah. Maybe the last one of theirs they did that I really liked. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to think of too.
Maybe Big Hero 6. And most people didn't even really like it, but I liked it. Or that's
that was Pixar?
No, that's not Pixar.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I keep getting mixed up. Yeah. Is Wreck-It Ralph Pixar? Because there's Pixar, and then there's the Disney studio that's not Pixar.
I think it is Pixar.
For instance, like you know, Tangled and the other one,
Frozen.
Frozen. Those are not Pixar. Those are the studio, the other studio. They're not Pixar. So I thought Wreck-It Ralph was one of those, but I can't remember now.
Well, they have another. I saw Incredibles 2. I didn't really care for that either.
Yeah, they waited too. That's another time where like that. Incredibles was my second favorite Pixar. I love Incredibles. I loved it when I saw it. Thought it was awesome. And again, they waited way too long for the sequel. I was like, you're doing 3 cars and you can't do a stupid, you know, Incredibles. It took them like 15 years or something to do this.
That may have been Brad Bird's fault. I don't know.
Yeah. In any case, it was okay, but yeah, it wasn't as good as it could have been.
So we're like Monsters University, Inside Out, The Good Dinosaur.
Plot twist is the first one. Well,
Finding Dory, Coco, which you didn't like Coco either, did you?
No, I did not like Coco at all. I think that maybe that's the worst one they've done in recent years. Again, a lot of people seem to really like it, but I didn't like a single thing about it.
And then Incredibles 2 and Toy Story 4. You must be right. Wreck-It Ralph must be the Disney Studios.
Yeah. No, I did not. I can't think of a single thing I could have liked about Coco. I didn't like anything. I mean, obviously it looked beautiful, like the way they all do. But I mean, that's just a given at this point. They're all going to look really great. They're, you know, the highest standard of that kind of animation. But no, I did not like Coco. And it's another time where they're relying on a ridiculous plot. Like, what family bans music? That's fucking retarded. I mean, that's just stretching credibility. A family and bans music entirely. All music. Just not this kind of music, not this band, not this artist. Music. Don't even hum. You know, that's too much. I don't believe that.
It's like Footloose.
I believe they're jumping around in the netherworld more than I believe in a family that would exist that would just ban music.
Yeah, it's like Footloose. The whole town bans dancing. So, I mean, what's more believable?
Well, that's organized dancing. That's not. You can't just dance.
You can? Okay. I mean, I thought it was just like moving your body in general.
No, it was organized dance. Remember that whole super, super, super gay scene where he's teaching the other guy to dance while they play Let's Hear It for the Boy? They're dancing around all over the place. The cops don't come and arrest them or people yell at them. They're completely free to do it. They're just not allowed to have like an organized dance.
That's when people get pregnant.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was something like that. Or what was it? It was like drunk driving or something.
Yeah.
Crashed on a bridge. I mean, even that's silly, but to me, at least, yeah, they couldn't control everything. They're saying no going to organized dancing because it's immoral or whatever like that. They weren't saying if you gyrate your hips out on the street corner, you'll get arrested. But in the case of Coco, what they're saying is in this family, you do not play music, you do not listen to music, nothing. You know, and anyway, that's not my main thing. Even if you take that out, I still did not like the movie. I didn't like any of the characters or songs or moments or anything. I think it might be their worst in years.
I mean, I didn't see Cars 3.
I didn't see 2.
I like The Good Dinosaur, and I like Monsters University. Okay.
Didn't see Monsters University. I was never a big fan of Monsters Inc.
Really, that was one of my favorites.
My favorites are Incredibles and Wall-E. And I like the Toy Stories a lot. All 3 are pretty high. I like the Toy Stories.
Yeah, I've come to enjoy Wall-E quite a bit.
Wall-E's my favorite.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Always. My favorite from the time I saw it. Incredibles was my favorite until Wall-E came out. Now it's Wall-E, then Incredibles. Anyway, but yeah, The Wandering Earth was cool, and I'd recommend it to people if they wanted to see something different. It was kind of a different experience. I mean, here in Halifax, we have quite a few Chinese people. Ryan and I weren't the only white people in the theater, but it was close. I think there was one couple there besides us, and then it was all Chinese people. But I mean, I understand that. Like, because at first I thought, oh, this movie has pretty good buzz, and maybe it does, because I mean, he is sort of a big writer. But also, I figure, you know, if you're living in a foreign country, it might be kind of nice to have the opportunity to see a movie there in theater that's actually in your language. So that could probably be part of it too. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the movie is subtitled, obviously, if you see it, and there's a few times where the subtitles are a little rough, but not terrible. Just a few little weird grammatical errors and stuff. And there was definitely a few times where I don't know if it was the subtitles failing or if it's just not grasping Chinese humor, where people laughed, and Ryan and I had no idea why they were laughing. But there were also a couple times where they made jokes that I laughed at, where they, you know, even I thought could get it. So I don't know. But yeah, it's a pretty good movie. Nice sci-fi movie. I mean, I think its budget was like $50 million, and it looked even better than that. It looked more like $100 million.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's a pretty low budget.
Yeah, no, and this is a big epic scale movie with all sorts of effects and stuff. No, it looked really good. No, I liked it quite a bit. I'm really glad that I went. But yeah, Cixin Liu is a great writer. Really, really great stuff. The three-body problem, the first one, just blew my mind. And the only thing, like in general, what that trilogy about is basically aliens coming to Earth. Like that's in general what it is. Okay. Oh wow. But like what he does with it is incredible. And in the first book, they're not even there yet. The first book's all just about like the possibility that they're coming, and even that's really great. I don't know. People, in looking into the stuff about the other movie the other night, I was seeing, and they're talking about possibly making a three-body problem movie. I don't know how they do it. Not because it's so crazy and unfilmable. At least not the first part. I hear it, you know, gets there in the later books, in the third book especially. But the first book is pretty much all talking. There's like no big action. There's no spaceships flying around. The first book is simply people talking. It's still amazing. It's a riveting read. I'm just saying I don't know how well that would do as a movie. But maybe they'd combine it with the other. I don't know. Anyway, that's something I'll follow. Anyway, I'm only at the very start of the second book, The Dark Forest, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, definitely one of the better writers I've discovered in the last little while. But it's pretty cool that this movie gets a release in some places in the West. I don't know how many North American cities it's in, but I looked it up and it was in Halifax. So I was like, yeah, I'll go. That's pretty cool. But yeah, that'll conclude about recent stuff, and we can circle back to Dark City. Any final thoughts on Dark City?
Sure. That's a film I really come to appreciate. It's yeah, probably one of the better. I mean, definitely one of the better sci-fi films from around that period of time. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I always thought '98 was a really weak year for film. This is one of the best films of '98 for me, and it's a shame that I didn't see it back then. It's pretty cool you got to see it in theater. I had no idea it even existed when it was out in theater. It was only a couple years later. So like a lot of people, and like a lot of people who are actually consider themselves big fans of the movie, I didn't even know about it when it was in theater. That's another thing the director was saying in the making of thing that's on the DVD there. He said, like, a lot of people come up to me and say how much they like the movie, and they're like, I did not see it in theater. I didn't even know it was around. And some people even asked him, did this get a theatrical release? Like some people know that, you know, so I can understand that, because that's kind of where I was at. I didn't know, but I was very happy to discover the movie. And then maybe I didn't love it the first time, but I definitely started to love it in repeated viewings. And then as I started, you know, getting kind of uppity and comparing it to The Matrix and stuff and thinking all the ways it's a superior movie, I like it for that. But yeah, like great style and aesthetic, great job, you know, blending, you know, it's a cyberpunk movie with cyber diesel stuff, or whatever you want to call it, or diesel punk, I guess. The German expressionism stuff is cool. Again, you don't even have to be really much of a cinephile to see it. And maybe if you are, it'll make you interested in some of that stuff. Even some of the less stylistic stuff like that, from like the other Fritz Lang film M. Even some of the stuff in this is kind of like M, because M, even though it came out in 1931, kind of before the noir, M was very noir even before noir got going, you know. So it has some of that. So it's got that sort of future noir stuff, of course, that Blade Runner. But again, this is a movie that, you know, like all stuff in this genre owes stuff to Blade Runner, but you can see other stuff too. It's not just you know, Blade Runner ripoff, which is again, I think, a problem with a lot of those. You know, as you say, there's a lot of cyberpunk movies, but they aren't very good. I think a lot of the ones that aren't very good, they're just sort of pale Blade Runner ripoff. The thing, like, they don't even try to be original or add anything new. They're just sort of, okay, we'll take the, you know, the look of Blade Runner and we'll do that. So I think that's a problem too. This movie's definitely had some different influences thematically and stylistically, as we talked about, but it's cool that it's gone on to influence some stuff since that too. Like even some of the maybe Christopher Nolan type movies and stuff. Probably others that I'm failing to think of now, but yeah, and the director, he's had some sort of misses since then. I'm trying to think of the movies he did. He's still around. He's an Australian director. He still gets to do a big movie every once in a while. Alex Proyas. Let's see. Oh, he did I, Robot, which is a movie that I keep changing my opinion on. Like, it's mostly not a very good movie, but there are some things about it that I do like. Oh God, he did Gods of Egypt. That's what he did most recently, which I've watched part of on TV, and like, it was so dumb. I thought it was really dumb.
I haven't seen Gods of Egypt. I think I've seen Knowing, and I forget virtually the entire movie. I've seen I, Robot a few times, and I just can't. It's just in that period of time where Will Smith was just making garbage movies all the time, so I can't.
Yeah.
I mean,
I wouldn't call it a garbage movie, but it's not great, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've changed my opinion on that a bunch of times. There are times where I thought, yeah, it's actually a lot better, and times where it's like, no, it's not, and I don't know. I kind of go back and forth in that movie.
Well, I'm like that, and then I Am Legend. I'll lump all that stuff together as, you know, just stuff I don't want to see. But
yeah. Speaking of Will Smith, I think I got more likes on Twitter than I've ever gotten from my observation about Will Smith in the new Aladdin. It's too bad. Like, that trailer is so depressing too, because everything else looks really good, and then it ends with him, and you're just like, oh God, no. You know, I've tried to be optimistic about these live action remakes of the Disney films, and I don't know, like, the Beauty and the Beast had some good things going for it and stuff, and actually the one I really actually like so far is the Jungle Book. I like the Jungle Book one, but now I'm really more down on them now, especially for the newer ones, because everybody that did Jungle Book is probably dead, or at least close to it. But like, I just found out that, like, because of some weird loophole, like, Disney has, like, just owns the rights flat out to these things, separate from the people that, like, wrote them and stuff. Mm-hmm. Although it's only for the animated stuff. So yeah, like, the people that wrote Aladdin or Lion King, they get nothing. They don't get a dime or even a hint of recognition for these movies. To me, that's horrible. That is deplorable, and I can't believe Disney would do that. I guess I should. I can't believe I'm saying that, because people are like, really? You know, it's Disney. What depths will they sink to, you know, to get a profit? Well, I don't know. Maybe I was naive and held them to a higher standard than I should have. But so yeah, that really upsets me and bothers me, that, like, yeah, concepts and characters and songs and all this stuff that was in these movies, suddenly they don't get any credit when they're being just blatantly remade in a different format. That's ridiculous. So I'm definitely not going to go see Aladdin. That ain't happening.
Is it a white guy playing Aladdin?
No, they did do their homework. They probably wanted that initially, but again, they kind of were conscious. So yeah, the guy playing him and her playing Jasmine, you know, they're of Middle Eastern descent. Now, maybe there's somebody on here that can say how it's not legit because it's only because of blah, blah, blah. I don't know, but they're at least of somewhat descent. Yeah, and they look fine. Then I'm all for it. I don't know, but
oh, Guy Ritchie's directing it? Good gosh.
That is really weird.
Wow.
It doesn't make me as sick as Tim Burton doing Dumbo, though.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually watch that if Tim Burton does it.
I'm going to puke everywhere. I love Dumbo so much. I do not want to see Tim Burton get his stupid hands on it. Well, it's already happened, obviously. I saw the preview for it, and again, it's the same sort of thing you expect. Like, let's make Dumbo not that important, and let's make a focus on human characters that didn't even exist in the original. Thanks so much.
So what's the order? Is Aladdin coming first, then Dumbo, then Lion King?
I think so, something like that. I'm pretty sure they're saving Lion King for last because that's the big one everyone's losing their shit over.
I don't care about these movies at all.
I wanted to, but now I'm, no. I at least had a morbid curiosity. Now I'm just mad at them.
See, I don't like Will Smith whatsoever, so I'm probably going to boycott it because of him.
Well, I had mixed feelings, but then seeing it could, guaranteed it. Because I just thought, I don't know, that sounds pretty bad. And then I saw the preview, and I mean, I know it's just a preview, but it was enough. Seeing Will Smith all blued up, talking like an idiot. Like, yep.
So here's a part where he's not blue. I'm just looking at screenshots.
Well, he probably changed his form a few times. It's the genie, right?
I mean, he's just like his normal self with a weird ponytail.
No idea. I just saw the normal preview that they released. It's not that long. And everything looked really good. It's, there's the Cave of Wonders. There's the boy. There's Jafar. The Jafar looks kind of short. But, I mean, that's just nitpicking, I guess. And then... And as I said before on previous shows, like, I don't believe in the idea that making a live-action version of an animation, like, makes it better or legitimizes it. It's like, oh, like, Lion King was so good. Can you imagine how good it would be live-action? Like, to me, I'm just like, no. And how's it live-action anyway? What, you got lion actors? You don't. Anyway. I guess that'll do. So that was Dark City. Pretty cool cyberpunk, plus some other stuff too. A pretty cool cyberpunk entry that Jay and I have both been fans of for a while, and I was happy to revisit and see it again. It's a film I get a lot of satisfaction out of. I like the ending, story, performances, etc. A lot of good stuff. And so now I can say that we are going to embark on a series again, but it's going to be shorter than past series. I think we're just going to keep this one. I think it's 4. It's going to be a 4-film series on a mysterious figure in film who could have easily been one of the guys featured in our Masters of Film series. As we said, there are people we had to leave out. And this is the mysterious Orson Welles, the original enfant terrible of cinema, who just had a fascinating life and career. So, we're only going to do 4 movies, so we can't really encompass everything, but he's just somebody that I've always been really interested in and want to talk about. And I kind of got kickstarted because on Netflix a couple of months ago, they released a documentary called They'll Love Me When I'm Dead, which talks about his life and career, but especially focuses on the big, like, he had a bunch of stuff he worked on that didn't get finished, but the big one was this one in the 70s called The Other Side of the Wind that he really wanted to do. And they coincide with the fact that now in 2018, they finally did finish a working version of that movie. Like, I'm sure it's not exactly what Welles' vision was, but anyway, and I've been holding off watching it. So one of the films we're going to do, maybe the one we end on, will be The Other Side of the Wind, because I'm really interested to see what it's like. This film that was mostly shot over several years in the mid-'70s and then, just left. And I don't know if... I know part of the reason it only got released now wasn't just because of the logistics of trying to finish an unfinished film, but was also because of that Welles had sort of an uncharacteristic way of getting funding for his movies, which made them legally very difficult, and that he would often get like independent producers, usually people living in Europe, to put up the money for his films. So then when the rights come into it, if it gets really messy about who actually has the rights, because you have multiple people that are producers and they're not part of like companies or anything like that. So that's one of the reasons why this movie's taking so long, I think, is sorting out that sort of legal quagmire. So I think that's probably a movie we'll end on. Then we're going to do 3 more to start. I want to say we're going to start with Touch of Evil, but I'm not sure. So
if we can find it,
if we can find like both of Touch of Evil was on my Netflix forever, and then of course it disappeared as soon as I needed it, and it hasn't been available to Jay either. So I don't know if we can't get a hold of it, we'll make it something else. So we will let you know in the coming days what it's going to be. But yeah, that's going to be our series. Orson Welles, probably 4 films, a bit shorter, because he is a really fascinating guy with a really interesting career who's done some really cool stuff. So, and it's plus an excuse to watch some stuff that I haven't seen before that I've always been curious about, because, as I said, very, very interesting figure. So, yeah. So hopefully next week that will be where we'll be at. Orson Welles, the voice of Unicron. That was like his last role. He was Unicron in the Transformers movie. What a way to end it all. Anyway, so thanks a lot for watching, guys, and hopefully everything will go off without a hitch, and we'll be able to come at you next week to kick off our series on Orson Welles. So thanks so much for being with us and watching, and peace out, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, guys.